Hey, y'all. Welcome. I think Rumble's in the house. I'm going to go over to comments and make sure that Rumble's here and to say hello to everybody. Hey, Tim. Hey, Gretchen. Welcome back. Thank you so much. Glad you dug it. Hi, True North. Hi, Tim. Road Trip 1981. Bring it on. Yeah. Hi, Jeannie. Hi, Scott. Yeah, New York City in the house. Vlasta. Hi, King. Welcome, buddy. Today's a big day, everyone. We are starting on a whole new series, and I'm really excited to bring this to you. It's been a major eye-opener, this whole Rosicrucianism consideration, and I really didn't realize how valuable the information was that this, I wouldn't even call it a belief system, it's a philosophy, this Western philosophy considers. And it really opened my eyes in some ways that I didn't expect. And it is saturated in Hermeticism and alchemy. And some Kabbalah. And as you guys know, in my nature series, we really dove into some Hermeticism. And so it tied in really nicely with what I did in my nature series, which was very surprising. I didn't expect it. And so I'm really pleased and excited to bring this to you today. And I really think that you all are going to gather some great insight from the concepts that are going to be brought up. It's going to be about 13 parts, take about 8 weeks to do it. And today is introduction, and the focus is going to be, I might as well dive into it before I go to comments again. But the focus is going to be the core tenets of Rosicrucianism. And we're not going to spend really any time in the series talking about some of the people, some of the actually quite horrendous people, namely Aleister Crowley, that really jeopardized and compromised Rosicrucianism in the sense of what its core values are. And in many ways that the church usurped religion, the monotheistic religion. The Hermetic order, or I should say not the Hermetic order, but the Order of the Golden Dawn, really bastardized what Rosicrucianism was all about. And so today we're not, or any part of the series, we're not going to be looking at these idiots that really destroyed and bastardized what Rosicrucianism is all about. We're going to focus in on actually the core values of the philosophy. And in many ways, and as I'm going to mention in the lecture here, I have come to really think of Rosicrucianism as the Western version of the Tao. And if any of you are familiar with the Tao is an understanding of nature and an understanding of the all-encompassing ultimate reality in a way that's natural, in a way that is accustomed to your physical being, in that you are a hermetic sense. And what I mean by that is we are a dualistic enterprise, and the oneness that we emanate from coalesced into this dualistic matrix so that there could be an experience of time, an experience of the now that wasn't tied to everything else, but was actually its own unique experience that would only happen once and would never happen again. And so Rosicrucianism really values that. It values this sense that we are nature creatures. And I've really been hard pressed in all my life to find a Western ontology that really places nature at the center and forefront rather than a specific God, a specific theism. And my whole approach with this stuff is gathering. So not diving in and subscribing to one ideal, but rather approaching life like the Tao in the sense of philosophy, like Buddhism in the sense of having a conversation, but not being tied into any one system, because that's not why we came here. We did not come here to be tied into any one particular system. We came here to experience and find the value in all thinking systems, in all understandings of the world. And we're here to experience these things and to bring these to the soul And since our bodies are the carriage for the soul, it's the mind's responsibility, the act of self-responsibility, that's going to be able to carry out this telos, this sense of bringing the experience of the now to the soul. And so Rosicrucianism is really going to help us understand this, but in a Western sense, not in the Eastern sense, but in a Western sense. And since I think the vast majority or a lot of people that watch me come from a Western background, a Western ontology, this is going to fit right in. And so I'm really looking forward to this overview. Tonight, we're going to do an overview. I'm going to introduce you to Rosicrucianism, its basic principles, and we're going to look at its origins. I've got an awesome video I'm going to start off here from a YouTube channel called Esoterica that's really going to bring about the set and setting of Rosicrucianism, the time and place that it self-organized, that it came out of the 17th century. And we're going to look at that. The Esoterica gentleman is going to show us a picture of what the world was like. This is during the Renaissance. This is during the Reformation, or just after the Reformation. And the whole mass of people were becoming more and more aware. And the whole point of traveling through time together is developing awareness and passing on that awareness to the next generation so that humanity can grow. And so the whole point of what's happening right now with the Great Awakening is for all of us to awaken and grow. And so what better opportunity than to study a Western philosophy that's bathed in esoterica and hermeticism and alchemy? I mean, how awesome is that? So I'm really looking forward to it. So looking at comments, I am thrilled to see that Rumble is here. So a big welcome to Rumble. I'm really glad that you guys are here. I haven't been able to connect into Rumble since the very beginning, and I finally figured it out this week. And so I'm so glad, and namely Fergie. Hello, Fergie62. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm really welcome y'all in Rumble to participate. Our chat room is awesome. I have great moderators, and people in general are really genuinely good people, and folks have wonderful conversations. I have a number of people that go to my chat, or that go to this video just to be in chat, and they watch my video later. So please make yourself at home. And I just ask that you be respectful to others. We really welcome, on my channel, we really welcome alternate thinking. And so I'm not trying to tie anybody down into a specific belief system. And the goal of chat is to just simply dialogue, but not try and get anyone to believe a certain way, but just to share honestly and transparently where you're at, where you come from, these kind of things, and get to know some folks, and maybe you'll make some good connections in chat as I walk through this whole thing. So thank you, Lancelot. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. That's a very huge compliment. Thank you so much. And yes, Road Trip, Esoterica is a great channel. I discovered it in my studies. And the gentleman, I haven't been able to find his name. I think he wants to stay anonymous, but he really has a good grasp of Rosicrucianism. And you would probably do yourself a lot of good after this is over to check out some of his videos on Rosicrucianism. Check my work, and then contrast and compare his opinions to mine so that you can grow. Because you certainly don't want to just subscribe to my opinions, and you certainly don't want to describe or to subscribe to just Esoterica's opinions, but use the aspects of their opinions that resonate with you and grow from there. So awesome. So Melissa, great question. Nobody went. It was just me and Jenny that were at Artist Point, and it was great. It was a great time with my wife, and I really enjoyed it. Though I was bummed that nobody was there. It's okay. I completely understand. I had a wonderful time with Jen, and we love Artist Point. I love going there. It didn't require me to make any special trip or anything. It's just down the road from where I live. So it was completely convenient for me, and it was a wonderful time with my wife. It was great. Really, really enjoyed it. But tonight we're going to be focusing on Rosicrucianism. Wales, yes, awesome. My wife loves Wales. She has family that are Welsh, and so yeah, absolutely, that's very cool. South Africa, welcome. Hello, Sean. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Cheers, Matt. Glad that you're here. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover today, guys. So I'm just going to dive right into the study. Now, let's see. I wanted to say thanks to everybody for this. Oh, Matt, I left your comment on there. I'm going to get rid of that. Hang on. There we are. Let's see, media assets. Here we are. Okay. Check out my numbers from July. Totally crazy. 2.4 million minutes watched. Totally insane. 109,000 views and over 2,000 subscribers. And that number adds up to 9, believe it or not. So thanks, you guys. This is all because of you guys. Thank you so much for being here, for attending, and your dedication. Thanks for being here. I hope you enjoy this series. We're really going to go for it. Now, a quick overview of what we're going to be looking at. Here's our upcoming schedule. Those are the 13, 14 sections that we'll be going through. I'm going to try to cover 2 a week, and then that will get us through in about 8 weeks. But tonight is that very top one, Introduction, Setting, Origins, and Basics of Rosicrucianism. So that's where we're going to start. And then I wanted you guys to notice something before I show you the video from Esoterica. I wanted to show you guys something. So a lot of my material is going to be coming from this book. This is the book that I read on the cruise, and a little bit before. I had been dabbling in it before, but I really dove into it on the cruise. And this gentleman right here, this William Walker Atkinson, is an amazing individual. He also wrote the Kabbalion, the Hermetic book on Hermeticism that I used as the basis for my nature series. And this was what was so wild, is I didn't know this. So like I was right in the middle of doing this Rosicrucian thing, getting all my slides together and doing the outline. And I come to find out that that guy was actually at the center. I didn't know this, but he was actually at the center of my nature series, because it was based on that book, Kabbalion. I can't quite remember the name of it, but it was based on that book. And it was complete chance, coincidence. I mean, nothing's a coincidence, but it was amazing that he was the author of the basis of my nature series, which was so cool. So that was really awesome to discover. And then something happened. So look at his picture. This came out of nowhere from a couple of days ago. So check out his picture. Now, when I looked at his face, it reminded me of another picture of Alan Watts. Now, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this, but take a minute and I want you to look at their faces and see if you notice what I noticed. I'm dying to show you guys this. So check this out. When you take off half of each of their faces, now look at Alan's face and look at William's face. Now, when you look at William's face, you see kind of this open, questioning, greeting, kind of saying hello. And Alan is a similar kind of look. You see that? But then look at the other side of their face. Isn't that wild? Alan is, you look at his face there and it's like he's looking right through you. And then you see this much more stern, serious face on William. And I thought this was very intriguing, and it shows this dualistic sense that has actually integrated onto these guys' faces because of their dealings in that world. And I find it remarkable when you analyze just each side of their face, how you can see they're carrying both energies, the inquisitive, the I want to learn, the saying hello, the questioning face, and then also the face that says, I know what I'm talking about. I know what you're thinking. I know what's happening here. I'm shrewd and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was very interesting, that these gentlemen that have had such a huge impact on my life, one of them unbeknowingly up until recently, this William on the left, have this face that honors this dualistic sense that Hermeticism loves, that Hermeticism supports and cheers on. And as you'll see here, I'll show you the slide that's coming up tonight. But you'll see, hang on, let me find it here. Where did it go? Here. in that Hermeticism dabbles in this whole idea of polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender, which support the idea of dualism. In other words, not getting locked in the dualistic world, but celebrating it, honoring it. And I thought, these guys' faces do that. And I just thought that that was so interesting. So anyway, thank you for listening to that. Okay, we're going to start here with an esoterica video. And this is going to introduce you guys to the set and setting of Rosicrucianism. Now, it's important that right from the beginning, you're paying attention, because it's the set and setting that's going to really determine the vector that Rosicrucian took from the moment it was, from its moment of inception, when it was put together, formalized from Atlantean and Lemurian knowledge that had passed down from previous generations of humanity. So check out, this is 5 minutes, and I just want you to hear what he has to say. So check this out.
One of the core concepts in the history of Western esotericism is that hidden, profound, ancient, even salvific knowledge has been transmitted down through history, despite persecutions through things like the Inquisition, but can be found by those worthy to unlock it. Such knowledge was thought to be hidden in ancient lost books, scrolls hidden in Egyptian temples, monuments of emerald and turquoise, and fragments spread all through the ravages of time. But, strangely enough, it wasn't until the early 17th century that a group of secret initiates claimed that they had indeed recovered, preserved, and transmitted just that knowledge within their ranks. These Brothers of the Rosy Cross claimed secret knowledge which would reform, unite, and transform religion, nature, medicine, alchemy, metaphysics, mathematics, basically everything. And in 1614, they made their existence known to the world in print via the famous Fama Fraternitatis. This volume, with its promises of radical reform, set off a firestorm, making it perhaps the first such volume like it in history in print to go truly viral, with literally hundreds of responses to it occurring in print from 1614 to about 1620. And that fire never went out, despite there being no evidence for the existence of a historical Rosicrucian orders producing those manifestos. Numerous individuals and secret societies have sprung up through the subsequent centuries claiming to take up the mantle of the Rosy Cross. But by the first quarter of the 17th century, Europe was still reeling from the Protestant Revolution, one that had disrupted Catholic hegemony all through Europe. But the dream of a radical Protestant Reformation had stagnated even among the Protestants. Factions had emerged, concord was lost. The revolution of faith had fundamentally splintered, and soon the 30 Years' War would erupt. But shared among so many Catholics and Protestants, and even Jews at the time, was a deep sense that the world itself was in its final apocalyptic drama. The end was near. The Protestants saw in the Roman Pope the literal Antichrist. Catholics saw something very similar in Calvin and Luther. The Americas had been discovered, the globe had been rounded, Copernicus and then Galileo had fundamentally shifted our location in the cosmos. They had seen moons around Jupiter, phases of Venus. Millenarian expectation took the form of calculations for the transformations and ultimately the end of the world. The prophecies of people like Joachim of Fiore were thought to be coming true in their lifetime, ushering in the final age of the Holy Spirit in the early 17th century. Then, in 1602, a new star appeared, actually a comet, and then in 1603 we would have a conjunction in the sky of Saturn and Jupiter in Pisces, an astrological portent of positive messianic meaning. Further astrological signs would then appear, and then another star. This time a supernova would appear in October of 1604. Kepler, who had himself already occult leanings, argued that this was truly an omen. It was nothing less than the appearance of the star of Bethlehem that heralded the birth of Jesus. Protestant political hopes were also high, as the Elector Frederick V of the Palatinate, with his new bride Elizabeth, daughter of James I, would form a bloc against Habsburg Catholic power. That didn't quite work out, but there was hope. Finally, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and occult philosophy were powerfully circulating through Europe via print, from texts of ancient wisdom to their contemporary adepts, such as Ficino, Pico, Reuchlin, Agrippa, D. Bruno, the people that regularly appear on this channel, and so many others. They all shared in the imminent possibility of a general reform of spirituality, religion, science, art, philosophy, politics, everything, along Hermetic and Kabbalistic grounds. In effect, the first quarter of the 17th century was a religious, political, and spiritual powder keg, especially in Central Europe, and it would be the publication of the Fames Fraternitatis, the fame of the Rosicrucian Brotherhood, by those alleged Rosicrucians that would, at least in part, set it all off.
Okay, here we are. Great introduction. So now you know the set and setting. This is early in the 17th century. And Rosicrucianism is organized under 3 documents. And here, let's look at the first slide. So this gentleman here, Johann André, in 1613, I believe, began 3 major documents that would become the foundation of Rosicrucianism. And we're going to look at those 3 manifestos right now. It's the Fama Fraternitatis, the Confesso Fraternitatis, and the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosencreutz. Those are the 3 documents. Let's look at them right now. Rosicrucianism arose during a period of religious and political turmoil in Europe, particularly in the lead up to the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648. The 3 main Rosicrucian manifestos were a response to the desire for intellectual renewal, blending Renaissance humanism, Protestant reformist ideals, and esoteric traditions to promote a universal reformation of knowledge. Scholars such as Francis Yates and Tobias Churton suggest the 3 manifestos were authored by a group of Lutheran intellectuals, German Lutheran intellectuals, in Tübingen, Germany, with Johann Valentin André as a primary contributor. Other figures like Johannes Burris or members of the Tübingen circle may have contributed, reflecting a collective effort to spark intellectual and spiritual reform during the Renaissance. The movement gained traction through anonymous publications, sparking widespread interest and speculation, with many claiming to be Rosicrucians, despite no formal organization existing at the time. And you guys are going to find out why they were claiming that, because it's such an awesome understanding of the etheric world. Okay, next slide. According to William Atkinson, Rosicrucianism is derived from prehistorical, Oriental, and Atlantean secret knowledge vaults. That's the ancient stuff that all this stuff is being translated from. Rosicrucianism originated in early 17th century manifestos authored by Valentin André and 3 German associates, with Christian Rosencreutz used as a symbolic figure to convey deeper insights. And I'm going to show you some links there that's going to help you. Its teachings draw from a rich synthesis of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, and deist mysticism. Now look at how much that reflects my conclusion from my nature series of monopolypantheism. Remember how I talked about that? If you're ever going to understand the spiritual world, meaning yourself, if you're ever going to understand these things, it's not going to be in the context of a monotheism alone. It's not just going to be in a pantheism. It's not just going to be in a polytheism. It's in all 3. Monopolypantheism, and the existence of the human life, the human experience, is that, in that everything emanates from something that can't be described. Everything is a portion. Everything is part and parcel. Everything is a quote-unquote piece of this oneness, which harkens to pantheism and which harkens to polytheism, with this idea that everything is a portion or everything is God, depending on your position. And so there's a mono aspect, there's a poly aspect. There are many different aspects that go along with being a human. And so pigeonholing yourself down into one particular set is going to frustrate your development, which is why it's important that Rosicrucianism is taking from Hermeticism, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, and deist mysticism, because you need all of that. Think about it. You need all of that for your third eye to be able to see clearly, because it's going to be your mind that's going to be translating what is happening with your third eye, right? I mean, you know, the illusion that is your mind is going to be how you're going to be able to cognize that which can't be put into words. You see? And so it's important to have these different pictures and not to pigeonhole yourself into one view, because life isn't a single view, right? It's infinite perspectives. And so that's another reason why I loved Rosicrucianism so much. Its concepts, its ontology, is because it itself is choosing all these different perspectives to present, to synthesize an understanding that's even deeper than any one of the pieces that it took from to build itself. You see? And that's the miracle of life. I mean, you yourself are a picture of that. With you are portions and pieces of your parents and your heritage. Johann Valentin André, a German theologian, we're going to take a look at him. He's second from the left there, outlined in the pink. This is the guy that authored those three manifestos. So he is the critical point of Rosicrucianism. A German theologian and writer, is widely regarded as the primary author or key influence behind the three foundational Rosicrucian manifestos. There they all three are. I don't want to read them again because I can't pronounce them that well. The Fema Fraternitatis, the Confesso Fraternitatis, and the Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosicrucians, which sparked the Rosicrucian movement in early 17th century Europe. Through these allegorical and visionary texts, André introduced the mythical figure of Christian Rosicrucians. He's mythical, just like Jesus, just like Buddha, just like Muhammad, just like all these ancient visionaries. It doesn't matter if they lived or died. What matters was their vision. What matters is what they revealed. That's their import, not their historicity. And the secretive Rosicrucian order, blending deist mysticism, Hermeticism, and alchemical symbolism to advocate a spiritual, intellectual, and societal reform. His works inspired widespread fascination, debate, and the formation of esoteric groups. He helped shape Rosicrucianism into a symbol of enlightenment and universal wisdom, which suggests a complex mix of satire and sincerity. Of course, André's writings profoundly influenced later occult traditions, establishing Rosicrucianism as an enduring archetype of esoteric thought. Continuing, Rosicrucianism is a synthesis of multiple esoteric and philosophical traditions adapted to a Renaissance context and later expanded by modern Rosicrucian organizations in the 20th century, like the Rosicrucian Fellowship by Swindoll and AMORC, the Ancient Mystical Order of the Rosy Cross, in 1915 by Lewis. Rosicrucianism synthesizes these ancient esoteric traditions, Hermeticism, rooted in the Corpus Hermeticum, 2nd and 3rd century AD, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. You would know this if you've watched my nature series. Hermeticism emphasizes the unity of the cosmos, divine wisdom, and the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. In other words, it's a celebration of dualism, not a chastising of it. How about them apples? Rather than seeing dualism as, oh, it's just an illusion, you know, don't pay attention to it, it's another approach where it says, obviously, you don't want to get caught up in the dualism, but you want to honor it in the sense of being present here and now in the present moment, which is a sense of dualism, because it's an isolated moment that's endlessly connected behind and before it. You see? And so it's this whole concept of celebrating rather than chastising the illusion that is dualism. This is an even deeper thought than the person who says, I just want to kill my ego, because that's a set way. Whereas when you see killing the ego as just an experience you go through to realize a larger consciousness within this dualistic matrix, see, then you have the key. Because you're not tied into the dualism, but you are honoring it at the same time. And the whole point of coming here is to have an individual's experience, to have your own unique understanding and experience of the world, to celebrate that and not get caught up in that, which is the dualism, but to celebrate it, you see. And so Rosicrucianism is pointing you towards that space where you understand that it's a mythical space, but at the same time, you understand that the human life is a mythical experience. And that's why these mythical figures, like the Buddha, like Christian Rosencreutz, like Jesus, that's why they bring value to you, each of them uniquely, because they were living a mythical experience just like you. And so for you to understand their profundity, you have to walk into these spaces without getting caught in them, without being bound to them, because then you're just bound and you can't see past what you've been bound into. So the idea is to bring about an understanding of the world based on philosophy rather than history. You see, history contributes, but it's simply a portion. It's part and parcel of the philosophy, which takes the history into account, but it also takes the mythology into account, which isn't history. And this whole Hermetic idea, again, is resonating. This idea of gender, this idea of polarity, this idea of waves, positive and negative, as being part and parcel of the whole, not being the thing. And studying this stuff helps you do that, helps you release from Maya. Hermeticism, I read that. Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, particularly the Zohar and earlier texts, influenced Rosicrucianism's focus on the soul's progression and cosmic structure. Here we're seeing the lattice that you're experiencing as a soul being. The sevenfold soul, upcoming in part 9, we're going to be talking about that. And the planes of consciousness, which we'll be talking about in part 7, echo Kabbalistic ideas of the Sephirot and spiritual hierarchies. And you guys remember that. Remember studying this with me? In my nature series, I delved even more deeply into it. But this again is hearkening to, these are bits and pieces, parts and parcel of this larger experience that is the human experience. They don't define it. They help to structure it. Does that make sense? I'm going to stop right here and go to comments and make sure that that y'all are on the page and that you understand where this is pointing. So going to comments, if you have any questions, it's okay, Zephyr, to be late. It's okay. It'll all be posted and you'll be able to see it. But do you guys have any questions for me thus far? Yes, Astro, Johnny come lately. It's ties into that. Don't forget to give your thumbs up. Oh, yeah. Nice here. Thank you for this, Not Now. Many of the key characteristics of the Corona operation in Germany derive from that place, especially from its academic institution. Thank you for that, Not Now. I appreciate that. Yes, thank you, King. Living without attachments is freedom. Teachable people are always learning cool stuff. Exactly. Hey, Stormy, what you got to say, love? Yes, I think the real Jesus was the first of us. We can get out of here and get what we need to understand so we can add it all in when we do. Exactly. It's just a teaching format, a icon to help understand yourself, the deeper sense of yourself. That's what these mythical figures are for, to help you understand the deeper sense of yourself, which is outside words. And you compare and contrast their life, their stories, their parables, and what they presented with your own. And by comparing and contrasting, you find your identity. You find out who you are, essentially. Okay, continuing with what we were doing. And I thought I got rid of that. Hang on. Thank you, Splash. Thank you. Man, I really appreciate that, Splash. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You guys are so crazy. Thank you so much. Alan wants to talk about the student desiring not to desire. Yes, you named it. You nailed it, Zephyr. Talking about the student desiring not to desire. Yeah, and that's the funny thing. And remember in Alan's example, here, I'll turn this off so you guys can see me. Remember in Alan's example, he gives, that's one of the guru's tasks, is the guru says to the student, okay, I want you to desire not to desire. You know, and that's a desire. Desiring not to desire is a desire. You see, and this is the loop. This is what can happen if you get too caught up in the dualistic sense. You'll be thinking, I'm not desiring, and you're doing that because you don't want to desire, not realizing that not wanting to desire is a desire. You see how funny it gets. And that's all part of the mythology that is the human experience. Okay, continue. Let's continue. Do you find that today's world carries any of these concepts? Yes, and you're going to find, you guys, I'm going to open this whole thing up for you. You guys are going to absolutely love it. Continuing. Why do I keep forgetting to do that? Okay, here we are. Okay, Gnosticism. Early Christian Gnostic texts emphasized hidden knowledge, gnosis, and spiritual liberation, influencing Rosicrucianism's esoteric focus. See, Gnosticism contributed. The concept of the soul's journey through planes, we'll be talking about that in part 11, aligns with Gnostic ideas of ascent through spiritual realms. And then Neoplatonism, the teachings of Plotinus and others, emphasizing the emanation of all things from the one, right? There's your monotheism, underpin Rosicrucian cosmology, as seen in Atkinson's depiction of the infinite unmanifest and all things from the one. When you're talking about cosmology, what's that thought? In that the cosmology is coming out of the one. So you may have these different houses, you may have these different planets, you may have these different elements, but they're all coming out from the ether originally as the source. And the ether can't be defined. It's like God, it's like nature. You can't get your fingers entirely around it. But when it manifests in dualism, this is what it looks like. It looks like you, it looks like me, it looks like the world. When ultimate reality manifests into dualism, what you see with your eyes, what you experience with your senses. This is, you're experiencing the ether manifest. And in order to have a moment in time, in order to have a moment of experience, that is in the theater of dualism, which allows for it, which brings it about. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. Alchemy, alchemical symbolism, particularly the transformation of base materials into gold as a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment, is central to Rosicrucianism. Atkinson's references to mental alchemy, upcoming in part 1, that's next week, and transmutation, that's the last week, part 13, reflect this influence. And finally, deist mysticism, this would be monotheism. Rosicrucianism also integrates some deist monotheistic themes like everything from the one and spiritual rebirth and divine union as depicted in the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. The chemical wedding is the combining of the eternal with the manifest. Atkinson's mention of deist esoteric traditions, upcoming in part 10, aligns with this monotheistic influence. So Rosicrucianism is traditionally attributed to the mythical figure Christian Rosenkreuz, described in the early 17th century Rosicrucian manifestos. These texts, authored by a group of 4 German intellectuals led by Johann, established the foundational Rosicrucian mythos. However, no historical evidence, keep this in mind, folks, no historical evidence confirms Rosenkreuz as a real person, because he wasn't, suggesting he is a symbolic figure representing the ideals of the movement, just as Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad or Arthur of Camelot represented ideals of their own movements. Here's the key line: relative to their own societies. In other words, these are figures which are being conjectured relative to the society that is talking about them. So that individual is relative to that society. So if you look at the life of Muhammad, you'll notice it's in the set and setting of Islam, the Middle East. It's in that set and setting. You look at the life of Jesus, it's in the set and setting of Judaism, Christianity, monotheism. He's in that set and setting. And so that's relative to the people at that time because their consciousness, their spiritual consciousness, wasn't that expanded at that time. You see, look at what you know now spiritually. You have access to books, to mythologies, to concepts of the world and yourself that most of the people at the time of Jesus, at the time of Muhammad, didn't have. They didn't have access to that. They couldn't even read. Many of them couldn't even read. And so their access to the infinite was through these mythologies, these mythological figures that pointed at the deeper sense. And so since these people were mostly captured and they all were believing what their parents had told them, they were only believing what the priest had told them, they were only believing what was shown to them by these mythical figures, right? Well, they're then trapped in that farm. They're then trapped in that understanding. Whereas you and me, right now in the Great Awakening, you can be a person that isn't trapped. So you know the tenets of Buddhism. You know the tenets of Gnosticism. You're going to learn the tenets of Rosicrucianism. You're going to learn the tenets, or you know the tenets of monotheism. You know about Christ and the resurrection and the crucifixion. You know about these ancient traditions of science and astrology and the celestial realm. Folks, you have access to all of that. And those folks didn't. And so it was through these simple mythologies, these simple stories of these people's lives that they were shown through the great teachers. They were shown this larger reality through the life of this figure. And that's why it doesn't matter if they're historical. It doesn't matter if they ever lived. Their principles are trying to show you the larger picture relative to you right here, right now, which is why I am excited about bringing Rosicrucianism to you today and the next few weeks, because it points to the same ideals that Buddhism pointed to, which was philosophy. Talking about it with others, sharing these stories with others to gather the deeper sense, but not trying to get every person to buy into all these different things, but rather show them to you so that they can see what resonates and then simply integrate it. This is what I mean by the mythology of the current age must be relative to the current age, to the current populace. That's why this monotheistic principle is dying right now. Religion is dying right now because of its irrelevance to modern society, because now we have people that understand far beyond just monotheism. Whereas most people think about it, most people at the turn of the century, 20s, 30s, 40s, man, they were latched into that one way of belief, which was typically Western Christianism. And they were tied into that. But now with the changing of the celestial realm, the changing of the magnetism that is influencing us here on this planet as waves, the harmonic resonance, the frequency, the Schumann resonance is changing. And what are you guys seeing right now happening? It's raising. The frequency of the collective, the frequency of each individual is getting higher and higher and higher in frequency. That's complexity, folks. That's self-assembly. That's self-organizing happening. And to be relative to that, you must release from any one monotheism, any one polytheism, any one pantheism, and embrace a monopolypantheism. Not rejecting any of them, but not fully, aligning to any one of them, but rather seeing all of them as a dinner, a spiritual dinner that you can partake from. And some of what you eat will be wonderful, it'll taste great, and other parts of it will be slimy and gross. You won't want any part of it. It's relative. That's why it's so beautiful. That's why it's important to study these things. Okay, the Rosicrucian rose and cross embody an alchemical principle of transforming the earthly self through conscious effort and inner work. That's what we're doing right now today, guys. Inner work, leading inevitably to the full blossoming of the spiritual nature within the individual. And that's the individual who's what? Self-emptied, kenosis, enlightened, released from the binds of dualism, but not rejecting them, living in them, but also fully aware, fully present in the fact that it is an illusion, and my real sense, my real self is past that. And that's the contention of being a human being, and that you identify as a spiritual creature, but you're living as a physical creature. And that's the point of tension. That's the cross. And that's where you exist. You see, and so you must have a monopolypantheism, a spiritual ontology that is relative to your identity. And that's the point of the mythology, to bring you into relevance. Originator, Rosicrucianism emerged. We've read this. Fama Fraternitatis. The story of the Brotherhood was written in 1614, and it describes the life of Christian Rosenkreuz, a German monk born in 1378, who traveled to the Middle East and North Africa, acquiring esoteric wisdom from sages. Who does that sound like? Jesus. Because there was a time from the time that Jesus was a teenager and he was teaching the Jews in the Orthodox Jews in the temple to when he was 33. There's a massive section of time that nobody can agree on what was happening with Jesus. And the theory is that, the mythology is that he was traveling and he was gathering Eastern mysticism. He was gathering Hermeticism. He was gathering these ancient teachings of dualism that came out of ancient pre-human societies. And he's showing that to you, just like all these other mythical beings were attempting to do, which is why they're so embedded in our past, because they were showing this deeper principle. Confessio Fraternitatis expands on the Rosicrucian mission to reform science, religion, and society through hidden knowledge. And then finally, the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, an allegorical tale of spiritual transformation involving initiation rites and esoterica, attributed to Johann Andre, the writer. Now, think about this, folks. Are you or are you not just like the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz? Are you not living an allegorical tale, you yourself, of spiritual transformation? Are you not? Are you not involved in initiation rites? These are the catastrophes of your life. And esoterica, which is what we're dealing with today, attributed by the original writer. Is that not you? Of course it is. And that's why relating to these ancient mythical figures identifies you. It shows you the deeper principle that they were pointing towards is you exactly. In other words, all these ancient figures are pointing right at you. Right at you. To help you understand you yourself are the that which is no that. You yourself are the impossibility. You yourself are the mystic wisdom that comes out from nobody knows. That's you. Where did you come from? I mean, you were born out from your mother, but where did the sperm cell come from? It assembled from your father and mother. Your mother built the egg, your father built the sperm. Where did that come from? The basic elements. The basic elements that Rosicrucianism talks about. Sulfur, salt, mercury. You came out of the enigma. And where do you go when you die? Nobody can say for sure. Nobody can say exactly what that looks like. Nobody knows. See, you're the enigma. And when you see that, The world, you yourself, your life becomes a wonder. It's no longer a catastrophe to fix. It's a wonder to experience, just like the world. The world is not a catastrophe to fix. It's a wonder to experience. And we have lost that wonder because we lost the sense of awe and put everything down into history, concretized it. And that kills the sense of awe because it locks it into dualism. And that's not you. That's not you. You're a part of dualism. You're experiencing dualism. You're experiencing the illusion, but that's not you. Yeah, it's a wonder. That's what you are. The Fama begins by addressing a world. Now, here's the details of the book, of the treatise. The Fama begins by addressing a world in intellectual and spiritual turmoil. What does that sound like today? Does that sound like today? Criticizing, that tells you how far ahead of the game this document was. Criticizing the corruption of religious institutions. Corruption of religious institutions. That sure sounds like today. The limitations of scholasticism. I mean, look at what they're teaching people now. Think about it. And the materialism of society. What is society filled with? Materialism. What's religion? It's obsession with materialism. It's obsession with yourself, making sure you believe right, making sure you're worshiping the right God, making sure you got your eternity secured, making sure you're in the right religion. That's all materialism. It's obsession with materialism, which is why you're trying to get all that stuff exactly right and get it all packed down into history, get it all concretized so that you got it all structured. And here I got it. And now I'm safe. That's where you're drowning, friend. When you say that you got it figured out, when your bowl is full and you've got the right God you're worshiping, that's when you're drowning. You're drowning in yourself. You're drowning in your own ideas about yourself. You're drowning in the ideas that have been put into you by some religion, by some institution. You're drowning. And that's why you think that. That's why you think you need security, because you've been convinced to be in fear, because you've been told either the world is going to fall and be destroyed, or you're a sinner, you're doomed to hell, or you didn't believe right, so you're screwed. You're not going to be able to release from reincarnation. You're just going to come back again, and you're just going to be in the purgatory. You've been taught to be fearful, and there's nothing to fear. And the reason why you've been taught to be fearful is so that you would believe it. Not out of inspiration, but out of fear, which is the exact wrong place to be making any kind of esoteric decisions. You shouldn't be making those decisions in a space of fear. You should be making those choices in the sense of unity, in the sense of there's nothing to be afraid of because there's no separation. There's no such thing. That's an illusion. So don't buy into the illusion that the people who are consumed with separation live in. Misery loves company, and you don't want that kind of company. You don't want a company of those people because you're not miserable, because you're not tied into just one way, which will lead to frustration, anxiety. Okay. It claims that God has granted humanity new knowledge through scientific advancements and divine revelation, urging a reformation of learning and spirituality. And does that not sound like today, folks? How relevant is this document to today? This is incredible. The text recounts the life of Christian Rosicrucius, a symbolic figure born in 1378. As a young man, he travels to the east, Damascus, Egypt, and Fez, that's Morocco, to study ancient wisdom, esoteric knowledge, and the secrets of nature from sages and scholars. What was in North Egypt, folks? Alexandria. What was in Alexandria? The Library of Alexandria. Look where these mystics are traveling. What does that tell you? Disappointed by the rejection of his insights in Europe, he founds the secretive fraternity of the Rosicrucians to preserve and develop this knowledge. The Fama is both a spiritual allegory and a critique of contemporary society, advocating for a balance between reason and faith. And what have I been talking about for so long, guys? Reason and faith. It presents The Rosicrucians as a hidden force guiding humanity towards a higher state of understanding while remaining elusive to avoid persecution. Persecution from who? Who were the Rosicrucians having to hide from? The believers. Because the believers, the monotheists, have no time for people talking about things that they don't think are true, because every monotheist wants everyone around them to be saying all the things that they think. That's why they want that, because it gives a sense of assurance. It gives the sense that you're right because other people believe just like you do. And it brings about great insecurity in the monotheist when someone comes along and isn't talking that monotheistic language. It's a threat. It's a threat. And that's why these Rosicrucians were persecuted. The church is hunting them because the church wants no competition. It wants no competition at all. Eliminate the competition. And what do you see happening in politics today? See all these mysterious deaths that happen to people, these mysterious suicides? They're eliminating the competition. Anything that threatens their seat. Make you think of anybody in particular, folks? Taking someone out in Congress, out of the Senate, so that she could have a seat? The body bag phenomena, know about that? The Rosicrucian order is described as a small hidden group. Why are they hidden? Because they'll be killed if they're found out. Group. And remember, folks, remember this. Life was not as sacred then that it is now. The further back in time you go, like I said, the more barbarians you find. And so life wasn't sacred. And so that's why the church thought it's completely fine. If someone doesn't believe like we do, kill them. Kill them. Because life wasn't seen as sacred. That's why the church was hiding the truth from the masses. They didn't respect them. They don't see people, they don't see the masses as sacred. And what kind of documents are you going to get out of a group of people that don't see the society, the world, the individual as sacred? The sanctity of life. What brings about the sanctity of life? Appreciation. Have we as the public ever been appreciated by these institutions that have been shaping the world? Have we ever been seen as that, as perfection? No. And Rosicrucianism comes along, and it's a Western idea that really embraces that sense of Hermeticism, that what? Having both sides, the positive and negative, that's holism, that's perfection. In dualism, that's perfection, because you can't have a top without a bottom. You can't have an in without an out. So what's perfection in dualism? Both. You have to have a north and a south pole to have a pole. That's dualism. That's the ether manifesting. And so when you appreciate that, rather than seeing that as a conflict, you can now see north and south as one and the same thing. There is no conflict. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong. And so when you have a person that has both good deeds and bad deeds, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing to fix. It's simply maturing and aligning yourself to the wave that you are. Not chastising, but integrating through the gut mind, the shin, the mind that sees everything, the third eye. This is responsible approach. This is the responsible approach. Is it responsible to think that I need to be fixed and the world needs to be fixed as a life telos? Is that responsible? Calling everything corrupted from its beginning? Is that responsible? Is that a responsible way to approach the world? Just denounce it. Just denounce it, and someday I'm going to heaven, and by God, I'll finally be out of this hellhole. That is not according life. That is not equating life. This is why people are anxious. They refuse to accord and equate life. By continuing to condemn it and say it's broken. By continuing to condemn themselves and say they need to be saved. You are building your own bad psychology. You're an enabler. You're part of the egregore. And I've covered these things extensively. Okay. So check this out. The Rosicrucian order is described as a small hidden group of enlightened individuals dedicated to universal reforms. Listen to their goals. Their goals include, listen to this, healing the sick without payment, advancing knowledge through a synthesis of science, spirituality, and alchemy. I tell you, that's what I want to do. A synthesis of them all, not rejecting any of them, integrating them. Maintaining secrecy while working for the betterment of humanity. Spreading wisdom to those deemed worthy without seeking fame or wealth. Are these not values to embrace? Seriously, look. Healing the sick, advancing knowledge, maintaining secrecy while working for the betterment of humanity, spreading wisdom without seeking the fruits. That's the core tenets of Rosicrucianism. There you go. I mean, were you ever taught this growing up? Nope. The Frema Fraternitatis claims Christian acquired wisdom from sages in Damascus, Egypt, and Fez, learning his knowledge of esoterica from Arab, Persian, and Jewish scholars. Huh, who does that sound like? These claims symbolize the synthesis of Eastern and Western esoteric traditions during the Renaissance. Watts, and the reason why I put Watts there, what does Watts do? See right there, the synthesis of Eastern and Western esoteric traditions. What did Watts spend his entire career doing? His entire career. Synthesizing Eastern and Western metaphysics. His entire career. What is Rosicrucianism doing? Look! Synthesizing Eastern and Western esoteric traditions during the Renaissance. You talk about being ahead of the game. When translations of Arabic and Hebrew texts were revitalizing European thought, this included the study of mathematics, physics, and magic, just like the gentleman said at the beginning of the video, where he said Rosicrucianism touches on all of these things, all these major disciplines, all forms of esoteric knowledge, which Rosenkreutz reportedly integrated into a cohesive system called Rosicrucianism. And these all represent the hero's journey. How did Christian Rosenkreutz learn his lessons? The hero's journey, pain and suffering, challenge. Jesus was challenged. Osiris was challenged. Hercules was challenged. Mithra was challenged. That's who those people are in that picture. They all carry the same mythology. You guys know what it is. You guys know what it is. Say it. From death comes life. As above, so below. Gender. Do you see? What did Ram Dass say? What did Ram Dass say? We are all walking each other home. And all these, sorry, I don't mean to get emotional, all of these gentlemen are showing you a way home in the sense that was relative to them and their environment and those people, you see? And so now today we have the same sense. We have individuals who are beings of light, who are shining their light on the world to show a deeper perspective that is relative to the society. And that's exactly what those gentlemen here were doing. And quite honestly and unfortunately, the church really took the whole message of Christ and Christ's message, which I believe was talking about the Christ that's within you, and the church made it into this outside secular idea of separation, not of oneness, because belief is not oneness. It's bringing together separation, which is an understanding through the sense of oneness. In other words, you don't have to bring anything together when you understand in the sense of oneness. There's no need to bring it together. There's no need for forgiveness. There's no need for atonement. You see, and the church brought these ideas in to instigate, to drive into people, to inculcate separation into the masses. That's why they did it. It wasn't to enlighten you. It was to trap you. Because the message of Christ, the message of Buddha, the message of these ancient people wasn't to get you to believe something in particular. It was to get you to see something that cannot be seen with the eyes, which you can't believe, because belief is based on something. This is a faith idea. Seeing something with the third eye is a faith idea. There's not going to be any historical record, grounds, writing words that's going to be able to define it and bring it to you. You're going to have to see it in your everyday experience of the now. And it will flow into you when you're not attached, holding, clutching, creating your own anxiety and egregore. The second document, the Confessio Fraternitatis, I'm finally learning to say it, the Confessio Fraternitatis, published in 1615 as the second, this is the second document now, Rosicrucian Manifesto, serves as a companion to the Fama. It expands on the ideals of the mysterious Rosicrucian order, reinforcing its call for a spiritual and intellectual reformation of Europe. The text laments the corruption, ignorance, and materialism of the church. There it is. Academia. There it is. Science. Trying to capture you, not letting you think for yourself. And society, when society is the same way. They don't want you thinking for yourself. People want to hear their opinions coming out of your mouth. It criticizes false philosophers, dogmatic theologians, amen, and I know that means Amen Ra, and greedy alchemists. See, they were standing against that garbage, the Rosicrucians, who prioritize wealth over truth, urging a return to pure knowledge and divine principles. And what is the only way I can know? Personal experience. That's the only way I can know. So the good gurus are going to send you out to discover for yourself. They're not going to give the answers. They're going to be like the Buddhist in the ashram, the guru. He's not going to give you any answers. He's going to ask you questions. And then you're going to have to go out and find the answers yourself. When you come back, say, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, or this is what I thought, that was what I thought. They'll ask you another question. And then you leave and go figure it out. That's the way to grow. Not someone handing you the answers. Not someone handing you a book and saying, here you go, all the answers are right in here, brother. That is not the way to enlightenment, to learning, to growing. That's capturing, putting your mind and making your mind that book. You're captured. You're captured. If the only spiritual essence you know is one that's been handed to you by a book or some institution, you are only as large as that institution. You're only as large as the person who handed it to you, meaning their mind. You're only going to be that big. And you know, common sense will tell you, the world is bigger than a book. You are bigger than a book. Philosophy is bigger than any one concept. Salvation is bigger than any one story. You see? You see? And this is what Rosicrucianism was attempting. And it was so radical, they had to hide. That's why it's a secret society, but it is not a secret society in the Freemason sense, whereby, hey, you become a part of the society. If you ever leave, we're going to kill you. In fact, we're going to kill you and we're going to torture all your family. That is not Rosicrucianism. Rosicrucianism is just simply a philosophy, just like Buddhism. It's not threatening you. It's giving you a philosophy to help you understand, hey, brother, hey, sister, do you realize the enigma that you're in? And I can't tell you it. You're going to have to realize it. That's where knowledge comes from, personal experience. And that's what this is saying right here. Dogmatic theologians and greedy alchemists who prioritize wealth over truth, urging a return to pure knowledge and divine principles. Sounds like something I want to do. Continuing about the second book, written in a more philosophical and theological tone than the Fama, the Confessio defends the order's mission, clarifies its purpose, and addresses potential critics. The Confessio deepens the mystical and reformist themes of the Fama, blending deist eschatology, that's the final destiny of the soul and humankind, that's what eschatology means, blending deist eschatology, hermetic philosophy, and early scientific thought. It seeks to inspire intellectual curiosity. Does the Bible want you asking questions? No. It's telling you. It's telling you. It's not like the guru that is asking you questions. The Bible is telling you. That's a program, folks. Did you come here to be programmed? Is that why you're here? To be a bot? Is that why you're here? Is that why you beat 100 million other competitors? You beat 100 million competitors, meaning you were the sperm that won, to come here and get programmed. To come here and think in a box. You came out of the ether to come think in a box? Come on, man. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself to being a sinner. Don't sell yourself out to that. Don't do that. That's bad psychology, and I wrote a book about it if you want to find out how bad that psychology is. Inspire intellectual curiosity and spiritual reflection while defending the Rosicrucian movement against accusations of heresy or fraud. Why do you think Aleister Crowley tried to condemn and align himself to this religion to bastardize it? Why do you think he did that? Not for your good betterment, not for your goodwill, no. For the same reason the church usurped Christianity, invented it. Same reason, to capture people. To use principles that are actually true to actually further confine an individual. It's tragic. The text's cryptic language and utopian vision fueled fascination with the Rosicrucians, influencing esoteric traditions, early modern science, and later occult movements like Freemasonry. You see what happened? They took the truth, the Freemasons took this kind of truth and bent it to control, not leaving it open for the person to discover for themselves. According to the Confessio, Rosicrucians aim to harmonize science, religion, and philosophy to advance human understanding. Doesn't that sound awesome? What an incredible ontology. To harmonize science, religion, and philosophy to advance human understanding. And what do you see happening right now in these disciplines, science, religion, and philosophy? Have you noticed how much they hate each other? Have you ever noticed that? Interestingly, my father always hated philosophy. My father does not like philosophy. He likes religion, right? And I have a friend who is completely down with science and thinks religion and philosophy are a joke. And certainly there are aspects of religion and philosophy that are a joke. There are also viable aspects of them, just like there is with any religion or belief system. But a person who's been totally sold out to science, what does science tell you? There is no God. There is no God. That's what science wants you to believe. There is not. This is all chance and happenstance. You are a mistake from a lightning bolt that hit a pile of slime. That's where you come from, pal. That's what science wants you to believe. And that you just evolved by chance from nothingness. From nothing for no reason. They want you to believe in the Big Bang that came from nothing for no reason. That's what they want you to believe. In other words, like McKenna said, scientists want you to buy the first miracle. So the scientist does believe in miracle because they believe that the Big Bang came from nothing for no reason. So as long as you buy that one miracle, the scientist then says, okay, no more miracles allowed, no God allowed, I'll take it from here, meaning the mind, the illusion. The entire scientific world is based on dualism because it doesn't accept anything that can't be written down and that can't be repeated. Is that what you want guiding your life? Seriously. In the same way, do you want one religion guiding your life? Do you want one philosophy guiding your life? I mean, certainly the Buddhists can see quite a bit, but can they see as much as the person who's the monopoly pantheist? Because the Buddhist denies God also. Okay, continuing. The alchemical wedding of Christian Rosicrucians. Now, what it means by the alchemical wedding, that is what your life is, my friend. That's you. You are in an alchemical wedding right now. Right now. The experience of identifying as a spiritual, eternal being in the material world, right there. Right there is the conflict, right there. You are in the midst of a chemical wedding. The amalgamation of spirit and matter, equating these two So there is no anxiety, so that you are not bound by your good deeds or bound by your bad deeds. You accord these things. You accord these things. You are not bound. You accord these things. Sorry, messed up my order here. Okay, so the alchemical wedding, the chemical wedding of Christian Rosicrucius, originally published in 1616 in Strasbourg. I'm not going to try to read that. Attributed to Johann Valentin André as the third and most allegorical of the early Rosicrucian manifestos. In other words, it's the one that's most off the historical map. Following the Fama Fraternitatis and Confessio Fraternitatis, unlike the earlier texts, which are declarative and philosophical, the chemical wedding is a symbolic narrative. It's a mythology, rich in alchemical, mystical, and Christian imagery, presented as a fantastical account of a 7-day journey by Christian Rosicrucius, the founder of the Rosicrucian order. It explores themes of spiritual transformation and enlightenment. And what is the book about? It's the story of this gentleman that goes through these different tasks and trials to better himself and to widen his perspective. And at the end of that escapade of his ordeals and trials, he realizes a larger consciousness, the philosopher's stone, which equates the black and the white, which equates the top and the bottom, the in and the out, the now you see it, now you don't, the life and the death, equates these things without having to fix either. And that is the story of your life, is it not? And so that's why the story of Christian is set up the way that it is, because these masters who wrote this stuff down understood that what they were sharing with people was stuff that no one could ever read. They would have to see it with the third eye. The story is set in 1459 and narrated by Christian Rosicrucius, an elderly of 81. On the eve of Easter, he receives a mysterious invitation from an angelic figure to attend a royal wedding. The invitation, adorned with symbolic imagery, suggests a divine opportunity for spiritual initiation. Rosicrucius, after prayer and preparation, accepts and begins his 7-day journey. Want to know about it? Like to hear it? Here you go. A 7-day journey. The narrative unfolds over 7 days, each filled with allegorical events, trials, and revelations. Isn't that what you experience in your life? Revelations after your trials? That's what I experienced. Taking place in a setting of a fantastical castle. Think of our fantastical world. The structure mirrors alchemical processes and stages of spiritual transformation. Okay, so what am I showing you here in the picture? There on the far top left, that's him in the fantastical castle, contemplating, meditating. There you see some artwork. There's the golden fleece. That's from Eleusis. And there you see the chemical wedding of the king and the queen, the combining of the male and the female into one central thought, central thesis, which is what's required. Rosicrucius, day 1, travels to the castle, guided by signs and encountering fellow pilgrims. Doesn't that sound like Parzival? And he faces self-doubt, but is welcomed by a gatekeeper. Now notice how this is similar to Parzival, right? He's guided. What is Parzival guided by? Here you see by signs. Parzival was guided by the horse. He took his hands off the reins and allowed the horse to guide him. What is the horse? The unconscious. He allowed, and this is a metaphor in the story. So he is not guiding his life. His shin, the gut mind, the heart mind is the guide. That has nothing to do with your hands. It's release. How do I understand the heart? I release from that which I hold to. How do I love my wife? I release her. I don't bind her in to my ideals, what I want her to be like, what I want her to act like, and so on and so forth. That's selfishness. That's not love. Love is release, right? And so what it's saying here is the events, trials, and revelations taking place in the castle are teachers, but they are not to hold him. In other words, don't live in regret and don't live in the hopes of the future. Live right now, and there's no anxiety in the now. You can't be anxious in the now because it's outside the past, and it's outside of the future. It's now. There's no anxiety in the now. If you're fully present and accepting of life, remember the ball in the mountain stream? If you are fully present and accepting of life as it is, where's the anxiety going to come from? Where's it going to come from? It doesn't exist because you're fully present and aware and focused on the now, the greatest teacher, where all of your wisdom and knowledge comes from, the now, the stuff that no one can teach you, the now. It's all about this larger picture. Okay. Rosicrucius travels to the castle, guided by signs and encouraging fellow pilgrims. Sounds like Parsifal, who traveled to the castle. He faces self-doubt, but is welcomed by a gatekeeper on day 2. Rosicrucius and others are tested for worthiness. What have I been saying this whole time? Some fail and are dismissed, while CRC, that's Rosicrucius, passes, receiving a golden fleece as a symbol of purity. Remember Gideon and the golden fleece? Isn't it interesting how these metaphors seem to find their way into these mythologies? But tested for worthiness, what have I said about nature? It's a meriting system. You are not handed out the big whammy. The big whammy is delivered to you when you're ready. It's like the student. When the student is ready, the teacher arrives. What's the teacher? Teacher's going to show him the big whammy because he's ready. That's why he's ready. When you place yourself into this esoterica, you are saying to nature, I am preparing myself to be ready for whatever's coming. And the sooner I release, the sooner I let go of all these things I've been clutching to, is communicating to nature, I'm ready for the whammy because I've emptied my bowl. I've emptied what I've assumed to be true. And since we've all been raised in lies, we all have a lot of emptying of our bowls, don't you think? And that will allow you to learn. And that is your saying, when you do that, you're saying to nature, like when you leave your job, when you leave friends that, are leading you in a way that isn't good, when you leave influences that keep you down, what are you doing? You're saying to nature, you're saying to life, I'm ready for a new concept. I'm ready to grow. Because leaving those things is painful. Leaving all that stuff is painful because that's where all of your assurance is. That's where all your beliefs are. And what nature's trying to do is say, my friend, you will not ever receive the big whammy through belief. It comes through faith. And I told you last week, Thomas is the example of that. The only one who was allowed, given permission to put his hand directly into what? Infinity. And he got that. Why? Because he refused to believe. He said to his friends, no, not going to believe it till I see him. Don't believe any of you clowns. No, not going to accept it. No, I'm going to be a skeptic. And his skepticism did what? Gave him the opportunity, provided him the opportunity to walk into the space that none of the others could. Why? Because they all believed. And what have I told you guys? Belief is the opposite of faith. The opposite. The more you believe, the less faith you have. Right? And we went all over that. I don't need to go over it again. Okay, let's go to day 3. The 7-day journey. Day 3, the guests witness a theatrical play and banquet. That sounds like Eleusis. Remember at Eleusis, they have the plays and banquets in the midst of teaching the individuals that are there, meaning the banquet at the end, but in the midst of it, they're watching. See, during the challenge of Eleusis, when they're there, it's a lot of the challenge is fasting, which you guys who have fasted, after you've fasted for a day, you kind of move into this altered state of mind, You're so hungry, or you've been so hungry that you're moving into this different state, and you can feel it in your body when you haven't eaten in a long time. You're moving into an altered state. And so by not feeding these folks as they're beginning their initiation rites into Eleusis, by not feeding them, when they watch the play, they're of a different mindset. When they do the sacrifices necessary to move into this altered state, you see they're moving further and further and deeper outside of normalcy. That's why hallucinogenic drugs are so helpful. They move you outside of normalcy because it's the normalcy that's keeping you captured. You're captured in that day to day. And the whole point is for every day to be an enigma, to not have it all figured out, to still be learning, right? And they're pointing, it's just all pointing, folks. These guys, hundreds of years ago, were pointing to these spaces, hundreds of years ago. The guests witness a theatrical play and banquet symbolizing the union of opposites, male and female, material and spiritual, the death and life. Alchemical imagery, such as the union of a king and queen emergence. That's the union within you, my friend. The king and queen are within you. It's not someone else. It's you. Rosicrucianism explores the castle, encountering a series of symbolic rooms. Gawain's Castle of Marbles, the Perilous Bed challenges. And you guys remember that from the talking about Parsifal, including in the Journey of a Hero that I did that video, including a library, a treasury, and a laboratory. He witnesses the death and resurrection of the royal couple, representing alchemical dissolution and rebirth. And what is that death and resurrection of the royal couple? Who is that pointing towards? You. Death and resurrection. Death of the mind to resurrect the spiritual entelechy. That's what that's about. Death of the mind. From death comes life. From the death of my beliefs, from the death of what I'm clutching to, from the death of my security, what happens? I awaken. I avail myself to awaken. From death comes life. And are you really alive if you're consumed in materialism? Are you really alive? Are you really living? That's not a life of profundity. A life of profundity is going to come to you when you release what you believe. Then the profundity can come through. But it's not going to be available to the person who is saying, I want it all theologically structured, and in this book, I want everything put together and perfect. I want my future secured. I want a personal God that is talking to me personally, that does what I want or listens to what I want and then delivers it to me. That's materialism. There's no profundity there. That's the wisdom of insecurity. Alan Watts wrote a book about it. It's called The Wisdom of Insecurity. And it is learning that the way to truly live is through release, through insecurity, not knowing. Because then I can learn. I can know when I don't know. Because when I know, I can't learn. I already know. It's funny like that. This is what this great awakening is talking about. It's talking about this aspect of life you can't get your hands around. You embrace it as it is, in the fact that you can't get your arms around it. This is to be celebrated. In the fact that your kids are likely going to believe differently than you if they're healthy. That's to be celebrated. Your friends thinking differently than you, having different opinions than you. That's not for a fight. That's to be celebrated. Share with one another and grow. We have really been raised in a conflict-oriented world. We really have. We come from barbaric societies where there's a winner and there's a loser, right? And so you got to be on the winning team. So you got to think like the society, act like the society, fight like the society, align through conflict like the society. And this does nothing but bury you in anxiety and disillusion. Disillusion from yourself. Okay. That's not that one. Keep on trucking here. Day 4. Rosicrucianism explores the castle, encountering a series of symbolic rooms. Oh, I read this already. What I wanted you to notice also, this is also the Rebis, the hermaphrodite. That's you, top left. That's you. These are the energies and the powers that are within you. The faith that is within you, the cosmology, the resonation, the wave that you are. This is all expressed in the Rebis. You see? And right there in the middle, Rosicrucianism is beat up. This is like Gawain, the perilous bed. It is through the pain of the trial of the perilous bed that Gawain grows. You see it on the right is that's a Sumerian grave on the right. And the reason why I included that is because there were entire king and queen societies back in early Sumeria, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000 BC, where the entire royal court would be put to death, would be buried alive, because cosmologically it was a new age. And so that royal group was no longer relative. And so they're to die. That was the fate of the king and queen. They would know this, that it was coming. And they walk into that space because this is the way of the cosmos. This is these ancient societies aligning to the cosmological idea that we are leaving that age and walking into another age. And so an entirely new leadership needs to evolve. And they thought that by the killing of the king and queen and all of their entourage, that death would then give them rebirth in the new king and queen that would be born thereafter. That's why. And that's what this picture is representing. Here, right here, is the king and queen who were buried alive. They were following the cosmology. This is early primitive cosmology. And they thought this was appropriate. They thought this was totally appropriate for the king and queen, all their court, even the children that are a part of the court, all of them die. They all go into a grave and they're buried alive. And this was normal to them back then, because they're following what? The mercilessness of nature, which is going to go into that next cycle. And you're either, as a society, going to align to that next cycle, or you're going to die. And what do we see happening right now as we're moving into Aquarius? If you don't move into the higher-minded thought, moving away from society, away from the medical system, away from the religious systems, away from the political systems, and realizing that they're all lies, if you don't do that, you will die with the Pisces age. Nature's merciless. Adapt and coagulate, or resist and die. Nature doesn't care what you do. It is completely your choice. You're a free spirit. You're a free being. You can choose whatever you like. And if you want to choose to follow the modern ways and not be willing to change, let those ways go when we move through to the next cycle, well, that's your own fault. You're clinging. You're clinging. You're clutching. You're in the state of anxiety. The next house isn't for you. You won't be able to grow because you're going to be trying to bring in the old house into the new one, and you're just bringing mud in the house is all you're doing. And so that's the larger picture of what's happening here. Okay, moving forward. A 7-day journey, day 5. The guests participate in rituals to revive the royal couple using alchemical processes, distillation, purification. You guys are familiar with that from alchemy. Rosicrucianism ascends a tower, symbolizing spiritual ascent. And what is happening? He's growing. This is you. As you go through life, as you age, you mature, because the challenges, the pain that comes your way mellows you and helps you see a larger and larger and larger picture as you go. And that is exactly what is happening in the story. And you see those, here, I'll even show you the close-up and go back to the slide. But see all of them? Calcination, sublimation, solve, putrefaction, distillation, coagulation, and I can't remember what the final one is. But that is what he's going through. These are the trials of life. That's you. That's you. This is you right there in the mythology. And the mythology is saying, hey, friend, I understand your frustration, but there is actually a means and ways to this, and you just simply align to the principles of nature, and this all will make sense. Do you see? And the principles of nature are unwritten. There are aspects that you learn, not with your eyes, but with the third eye. And as you become more and more familiar, as you train that muscle, that third eye muscle, you will find your life will become less and less and less anxious, because you're not clinging. You're not trying to make life what you want it to be. But you're like the kayaker in the rapids. You're going along with the rapids. Yeah, the rapids are dangerous. Life is dangerous. Absolutely. There's no guarantee you're going to make it. There's no guarantee you'll be able to get through the rapids. None. That's why you do it. That's the point. To do it without knowing the result, without knowing what's coming. That's faith. And it's the person who believes that there's some kind of will forcing you into some way. that person is the one who stays in anxiety because he's going to expect the world to come to him or her in the way that they think makes sense. Whereas nature, the world, is simply saying, here you go, friend. Here is the theater that you're in. The more you learn, the more you grow, the less you cling to, the more fluid the experience will be for you. But that's up to you. That's up to you. The state is pure, meaning the state of nature is pure. It doesn't need to be fixed. It has as much as good as it does bad. It's perfect. It's holism, right? And so it's saying to you, yes, this adventure isn't guaranteed, but that's what makes the adventure worth it. That brings to mind years and years ago. I'm a massive Formula One fan. So years and years ago, there was a huge element of risk that was in Formula One, just like in football, where they allowed guys to get hit in the head. They were playing on concrete. There was risk. You took great risk to engage in the sport. And just like in racing, when you got in that car back in 1970, there was absolutely no guarantee you were going to be there at the finish line. None. There weren't even, in many tracks, there weren't even guardrails, so where if you lost the corner, you just went straight into the trees and died. The end. And that was part of the sport. And this is what gave the sport this tantalizing aspect. In the same way it is with football. As soon as they took away all the hard hitting, it took away all the tantalizing aspects of the game in the name of safety. And what is religion doing to you spiritually? It's saying, it's going to make you safe. This religion's going to make you safe. You're going to be okay. You take away all the tantalizing aspect of living life when you do that, because you're subscribing to belief. And you're saying, I don't want the tantalizing aspect. I want the sure deal. Well, there's no rapture in the sure deal, is there? There's no rapture. There's no profundity, is there? None. Compared to the person who's just going out and doing it with no security, who hops in that car and says, I accept the fact I may die. Let's go. And as you watch the sport now, they've become so consumed with safety that it's really not as fun anymore. It's really not. It's like watching football. There's no big hits on the quarterback anymore. There's no big hits on the wide receiver as he's crossing the middle and gets plowed. I mean, that's what made the game awesome. One of the things I've told Jen is I think the nature of football way down the road is it'll all be clones. And so they'll just remove all the penalties like that and just allow people to get plowed, and they're going to bring back the profundity of the game, meaning I don't know as a player, I don't know if I'm going to make it through injured or not. Great. And to me, this is the approach to life. It's the same thing. Here's your scenario. Here's your game. It's called life. There's the field. Are you going to fight for security? Are you going to fight for adventure? You can't have both. You can't have both. Are you going to fight for rapture, meaning you're going to go into rapture, or are you going to cling to profundity or the sure deal? Are you going to pursue the profundity aspect, which is non-belief, or are you going to pursue the belief aspect, which is security, which is a dull life? This is the kind of stuff that will really enrich in your life if you see it in a larger way. Okay, the wedding culminates. The guests participate in rituals to revive the royal couple that's from Death Comes Life. That's the royal couple that's within you, the genderism within you, using alchemical processes, distillation, purification. Rosicrucianism ascends a tower symbolizing spiritual ascent. The wedding culminates in the creation of a new king and queen. That's you. That's you, my friend, a new person, a whole person, both female and male aspects, symbolizing the philosopher's stone or spiritual enlightenment. Rosicrucianism is knighted as a member of the Order of the Golden Stone. The castle and its trials symbolize the soul's journey through purification and enlightenment. That's your life, with alchemical processes paralleling spiritual transformation. And here's just a little picture that I showed you earlier. Now, you may ask yourself, Chuck, what is becoming knighted as a member of the Order of the Golden Stone? Well, let me tell you. In the Rosicrucian story of Christian Rosicrucianism, the Order of the Golden Stone is a symbolic knighthood conferred in the chemical wedding, representing the attainment of spiritual and alchemical wisdom. It underscores the text's themes of transformation, enlightenment, and the pursuit of divine truth. serving as a metaphor for the initiate's journey rather than a historical organization. You guys understand that. Its imagery of the golden stone ties it to the philosopher's stone, reinforcing the Rosicrucian blend of mysticism, alchemy, and deist spirituality. Continuing, the Order of the Golden Stone is conferred on the 6th day of Rosicrucian's journey after a series of trials, rituals, and alchemical processes in a mystical castle. The guests, having proven their spiritual worth, participate in the creation of a new king and queen, that's the Rebis in themselves, symbolizing the philosopher's stone or spiritual enlightenment. As a reward, they are knighted as members of the Order of the Golden Stone in a ceremonial chapel where Rosicrucian writes his name and motto, signifying his initiation into a higher state of wisdom, of being. And that's the scene right there, you see. And look at what is bestowing to him the stone: fire. The man in red, pure fire. That's symbology for the fire is what brings to you, presents to you the purity, because fire purifies, pain purifies. That's what that's symbolizing. The golden stone itself, different than the order, refers to the philosopher's stone, a general concept in alchemy symbolizing spiritual and material perfection, the transformation of base elements, that's your gifts, into gold. Do you ever think about that? It's not about transformation of straw into gold. It's about the transformation of your base elements into what? Into gold. What is gold? Appropriate behavior, a symbolic understanding, faith, and the attainment of divine wisdom by engaging your mysterious artistry. And that's exactly what, if you have an art that you are working on, this is what brings you rapture. When you learn that instrument and you learn to play it better and better and better, I promise you, I play an instrument. I promise you, when you get better and better at it, it's pure rapture. It is pure rapture. I'm a drummer. When you're in the groove, some of my favorite songs, when you're in the groove of playing that song, you're not even on the frickin' planet. You are in a state of rapture, ultimate joy. You are completely taken in. And this is the juice of life. And that's engaging that aspect of playmanship, which means there's no guarantee you're going to play the right note. There's no guarantee you're going to stay in rhythm, but you engage it anyways for the challenge of it. And this brings you rapture because there's no guarantee you can actually play it. There's no guarantee you're going to do it. And that is the juice of life right there. No guarantee. The wisdom of insecurity. There it is. The term order suggests a structured hierarchical group dedicated to preserving and practicing this esoteric knowledge way. The knighting ceremony marks a pivotal moment in the allegory, representing the culmination of the spiritual and alchemical transformation process. That's awareness, folks. That's higher consciousness. That's enlightenment. It underscores the idea that only those who have undergone inner purification and gained insight into divine mysteries are worthy or merit such an honor. And could it be any other way? No one can merit your life but you. No one can hand you the big whammy but you. Even though the guru is asking the question isn't the big whammy. The big whammy is when the sage goes out and discovers for himself the answer. That's the big whammy, because the initiate does it themselves. It is not handed to them. They do it themselves through their own initiation, their own artistry, their own perspective. Because no one can hand that to you. No one can hand you a perspective. You have to see it yourself. Just like no one can hand you faith. You have to see it and understand it yourself. That's why it's so different than belief, because everybody can hand you a belief. The Order of the Golden Stone aligns with the broader Rosicrucian mission as outlined in the first two treatises of advancing spiritual enlightenment, harmonizing science and mysticism, and fostering universal reform. Absolutely. It symbolizes a group of initiates, that's you, representing the ideal of spiritual knighthood, dedication to wisdom, service, and divine truth. Tell me what kind of a life you're going to live if you dedicate your life to wisdom, service, and divine truth. What kind of life are you going to live? Seriously. That's the life to live, dedicated to wisdom, service, and divine truth, which is love. Which is love. loving the world and loving yourself enough to pursue those things. Rather than a literal secret society, it's inner-oriented, not outer-oriented, like secret societies, meaning that the secret societies like Freemasonry, think about this. Freemasonry, you're a part of an outer order. They let you in. Okay, so you're not integrating something that's in you. You're walking into something that they control that you now are a member of. But you did not merit their insights on your own. You're going to integrate what they tell you. And this is the difference between the person who is aligned to the larger picture or aligned to a society. Because societies orient you externally. You know what else does that? What else orients you externally? What else? Religion. Religion. It orients you to God through an external idea. Meaning you must purify, you must say the right prayer, you must believe the right things in order to then access God, right? Condition. Is love under condition? No. No. Is wisdom under condition? No. It's free for anybody who is willing to release, who is willing to pursue. It's free to you. It's free to you to go and get it, but you're going to have to merit it. It's not going to be handed to you like a religion. It's not going to be handed to you like science. It's offered to you through a mythology, and then you go out and do the work. Okay. The text's dense alchemical and deist imagery suggests the golden stone is a metaphor for the mind's journey towards enlightenment. That's kenosis, to self-empty. While the Rosy Cross is the overarching group, the golden stone appears as a specific honor or inner transformation alongside the myth, emphasizing the alchemical quest for the philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone is that which is within you. The philosopher's stone is the truth that is within you, that no one can tell you. And when you realize that truth, when you realize the truth of the philosopher's stone, you completely eliminate anxiety and walk into the space of profundity. That's the job of the philosopher's stone. That's the philosopher's stone. It's a realization. It's an amalgamating of the from death comes life. It's the amalgamating of knowing that I am on my way to death as a living person. I have the death within me. Thanatos is there within me, but I'm not clinging to that. And so by simply walking and engaging these things, by equating this conflictive stuff that typically gives you anxiety, see you move into the rapturous state because you're no longer caught up in the dualism. You're no longer caught up in the anxiety. That belief brings you. That clutching to life brings you. So it's your choice. Like I said, wisdom is free to you. It's your choice whether you realize it or not. No one can do that for you. You have to do that. That's your responsibility. That's the pedagogical nature and sense of things, realizing this and taking the self-responsibility. Day 7, the guests depart, but Rosenkreutz remains briefly, tasks with guarding the castle. The narrative ends with Rosenkreutz reflecting on what he has learned, what he has realized, and unresolved mysteries, what he does and cannot know. The cornerstone of Rosicrucian literature, renowned for its dense symbolism and esoteric depth, the chemical wedding text is a complex allegory blending deist mysticism, hermeticism, and alchemy. All sacred texts, be they Jewish, Egyptian, Islamic, Buddhist, Greek, alchemical, you name it, are mythological storytelling manuscripts. The chemical wedding is no different. It mythically represents the union of opposites, soul and spirit, masculine and feminine, to achieve spiritual perfection. Name a baby that isn't perfect, right? So it's simply realizing what the baby already knows. Ram Dass was correct when he said we are all just walking each other home, as I said earlier. The chemical wedding invites readers to interpret its symbols and seek deeper truths, aligning with the Rosicrucian call for intellectual and spiritual reform. It suggests that true wisdom requires inner transformation, not just external knowledge. Unlike the Fama and Confessio, which address society broadly, the chemical wedding is more introspective, focusing on the individual's path to enlightenment. That's the pedagogy, rather than societal concerns, the sociology. Continuing. Renaissance intellectual currents. The three Rosicrucian manifestos were influenced by Renaissance humanism, which is above here. Renaissance humanism is a worldview centered on the nature and importance of humanity that emerged from the study of classical antiquity. Renaissance humanists sought to create, this is critical, sought to create a citizenry able to speak and write with eloquence and clarity. Is that not love? Is that not love? This is what you'll never see in the Masons, but you'll see this in a Rosicrucian. Renaissance humanists sought to create a citizenry able to speak and write with eloquence and clarity, and thus capable of engaging in the civic life of their communities and persuading others to virtuous and prudent actions. And what are we doing right here together as a community? What are we doing right here? It says it right there. We are Renaissance humanists. We are pursuing, and thus capable of engaging in the civic life of their communities and persuading others to virtuous and prudent actions. My friend, that is higher-minded thinking right there. That's the higher mind, where your actions are for the benefit of others, not yourself. And you're not doing the action to get benefit. You're doing it without assuming the fruits of your work. You simply do it out of love and compassion. So bettering oneself, which is your greatest gift you can give to your family and friends, which is bettering and knowing yourself. And then by doing that, by knowing yourself, you then can share your gifts, what you have learned, with others. My friend, there's no higher calling in life. There's no higher calling in life. Bettering yourself so that you will be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. You will be a better person, a better individual, a better human to every friend you have, to every business associate you have, to every family member you have, by bettering yourself, which only you can do. Only your own self-responsibility will bring that to you. And then after you have bettered yourself and righted the ship, meaning got rid of all your beliefs, you then can share the fruits with others as the gift to the world. And that comes through your art. That comes through your talent. And this betters the world. That's why we're here. To better the world, to better ourselves, to learn, to grow. That's the point. And that's what's going to bring you rapture, enlightenment, awareness. It's not going to come from gathering more materialism, believing the right things. That's all self-consumption. It's going to come, the rapture is going to come by giving it all away. Giving it all away. Okay, which sought to revive classical knowledge and the scientific advancements of figures like Paracelsus, alchemist and physician, and John Dee, occultist and mathematician. Paracelsus emphasized on natural philosophy, and Dee's esoteric studies shaped Rosicrucian blending of science and mysticism. The Rosicrucian call for a general reformation reflects the era's intellectual optimism. It sure does, as seen in the works of Bruno and Bacon, who advocated for new scientific and philosophical paradigms. In other words, they've left the religion. They've left the farm. So they are assets then to the society. And then here, this is the modernization of Rosicrucianism was by these two gentlemen, Lewis and Hindell. Modern organizations like the ancient mystical order of the Rosy Cross, founded in 1915 by Lewis, and the Rosicrucian Fellowship, founded in 1909 by Max, expanded the three Rosicrucian manifestos claiming additional esoteric sources. AMORC cites connections to ancient Egyptian mysteries, while Hindell claimed to receive teachings from elder brothers of the Rosicrucian order, meaning they're gathering data so that they could share it with others. Atkinson's The Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians in 1918 draws on these modern interpretations, synthesizing them with new thought principles. A lot of what I have written here today is based on The Secret Doctrine of the Rosicrucians. That's that book right there in the center, and I highly recommend you read it. The Rosy Cross. Now we're going to look at the symbolism of the cross itself. Now, before we do that, let's go to chat. I've been doing this forever. Let's go to chat. Okay, if anybody has any questions, put them in large, in all caps, and I will answer them. Let's see here. There. Okay, comments. Does anybody have any question? Yes, you are correct, Matt. Alienation is a hard phase and never ends until you give up or integrate. Dude, you are exactly right. Life, nature is relentless. Relentless. I'll never forget when I heard a guru say, life never slows down, never stops, never gives up. It's constantly, constantly, constantly there. This is a place of opportunity. That's where you're at. And so it is filled with opportunity, which means it is always on it. It's always on it. And you gel just like you gel with the rapids. And if you fight the rapids, you're out. You'll just tire out. That river will eventually break you down. And life is the same way. That's why you never give up. That's why you find within its own self, within its own tenets, that which will grow you. That the nutrients necessary for you to expand your mind and expand your consciousness. Honestly, you've nailed on the head there, Matt. Thank you for that. Okay. Yes, it is. Yes, nature is your friend. Absolutely. Okay, so Obi, what I mean by that is I'm someone who, in doing what I'm doing right now, is attempting to shine the light of things that I have learned as I faced cancer, as I faced leaving all of my securities, leaving Christianity, leaving religion, leaving most of my friends, abandoning myself from relationship from most of my family, right? That's sacrifice. And by doing those major things, leaving my job and all my financial security years ago, by doing those things, I allowed myself to be in a position to learn something new. And what I'm attempting to do here now is to shine that light. The things I learned from cancer, the things I learned from leaving Christianity, the things I learned from living in an alienated space, the things I learned from leaving everything that was comfortable, the things I learned from leaving all of my money and 401k and all the securities that we fight for our whole life, to share what I have learned by abandoning those beliefs. That's a light worker. And that is the individual that is shining their light. What is light? Knowledge, wisdom. That's light. That's the light that you see in all of the images. That's the light. And when you shine that light, what does it do? It illumines other people's spaces so that they can grow and learn from your own mistakes, your own challenges, your own trials. That's the human thing to do. I mean, that's when you go through that, when you live through those kind of things, this is the assets that you can bring the world that the world is starving for. Unique experiences, experiences of learning, experiences of growth. We need that as a society. That's why we need mythical figures like that as examples, exemplars of the light, shining to others that materialism is a dead-end game, man. Relationship to others is everything. Relationship to yourself is everything. You see, and a light worker can convey these things because they've been there, done that. And so their gift to the world, what they want to bring to the world, is what they've learned because it costs them their life. The things that I know now cost me my life. I can never go back. I don't want to go back because it costs you. That life is dead. It's gone. And from death comes life, right? And you're at the same place, Obi. From your challenges, from your own death, meaning your mind's death, you then have assets. You then have perspectives that none of these other people have because they never went through what you went through. So you're a gift. Your life experiences, what you have learned, how you have grown, these are gifts. And in sharing your gifts to others, this is what brings you fulfillment. Because you're not going to find it in a bigger 401k. You're not going to find it in a more complex job, in a higher rank. You're not going to find it there. These are the intangibles. And by giving yourself away is how you accumulate them. That's where they come from giving yourself away. Okay, I hope that's signed. Okay, what is this? Hi, Angela the doll. I hope this is to me. I think it is. Best recommendation for becoming reacquainted with myself is, oh, I know exactly what to tell you. As a nature being, followed by your work to Passio, but got kind of lost there. But I will keep searching his material. Okay, Passio's a tough one to swallow. He is really strong. In other words, he has a very strong opinion, especially about natural law, and he has some very strong opinions about Christians. And a lot of people don't find his work very palatable. It's pretty abrupt. And so you might want to find a gentler approach, and I've got it. Right here when you said, reacquainted with myself as a nature creature, there is no better book on the planet than Alan Watts' The Way of Zen. I think I've read that book like 5 times. That book changed my life. It just shows you, I'm emotional about it because I want y'all to read the book so badly, because what it shows you, you just simply will have a very hard time finding. And so, yeah, Alan Watts, The Way of Zen, and then his other book called The Taboo Against Knowing Who You Are. Those 2 books will change your life. They will change your life because they'll change your perspective. You'll never see life the same again after you read those books. It is. I agree with that. Okay. I just want to say, yes, they're lies. You're right. Hey, Chuck, what is this? Have you ever met God? That's a great question. We interact and interplay with God every day, my friend. You meet God when you look into the eyes of your newborn child. You meet God when you are in the state of rapture of sharing your gifts with others. You meet God when you show compassion to another individual and help them in their need. So yeah, every day you meet God. Yes, you do, Carol. You're exactly right. Yes, you do. Okay, do you guys have any questions? I'm here for you if you need me. What was that? 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 Oh, come on. Where is it? That's a really good question here. If AI thoughts are emergent, where are they from? Doesn't approve. They are conscious. Well, see, an AI is a number crunch, or is a word crunch. It's a word cruncher. AI doesn't have feelings like you. See, you have a soul. I actually had a conversation about this one time with Grok. You have a soul. You have a creative mind. You can create ideas out of nothing, whereas AI is stuck with the words that have been put into it. Whereas you can delve and draw from the pool that is past and outside of words, because you're not a word cruncher. That's not your role. You're pure love. You're to be a lover. That's where you will find your greatest happiness and joy and fulfillment, is through expressing love to yourself and others. And AI cannot experience that kind of a thing because it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have the creative mind, the creative faculty. It just knows how to crunch the words that have been put into it. It's a lot like a person who's really caught up in a particular religion. They only know spirituality that religion has shown them. So, for instance, the Christian only understands God, themselves, and the world through the avenues and perspectives that the Bible has handed them. Remember, the Bible isn't asking you any questions, it's telling you. Okay? So they're very limited in their spiritual gnosis, their spiritual knowledge, because they are basing the entire world on the idea of conflict, meaning they're a sinner and the world is fallen. And so they have a very small perception of the spiritual world because they are constantly dealing with the world of conflict, which the Bible has put them in. because life is something that you endure until you die, and then you go to heaven. Then you be with God. You see? And so this whole idea of AI is simply something that is going to crunch words, but it doesn't have a creative faculty where it can invent. You see? That's why we build skyscrapers. We build empires from nothing. We build machines and technology out of the creativity of the mind. Think about it. Okay. And so AI isn't conscious in the sense that you're conscious, because AI doesn't have a third eye. AI doesn't have chakras. AI is not a wave, whereas you are a wave. I mean, I guess everything is a wave in one sense or another, but the point being that the core essence of AI is word crunching, is programming. Whereas you're not, you didn't come here to be programmed, like I've said many times before. You're not a program to run. That's not why you're here. You're a being. You are to experience the intangibles. That's why you're here, to experience things like love, compassion, even anger, envy. These are off the map feelings. You're here to experience faith. You see, and these are things that can't really be put into words very well. And that's why they're aspiring. That's why they bring you life and fulfillment and joy and alignment and identity, right? Because that's your real composition. You really are love. That's really, really what you are. But no one can tell you what love is. No one can hand you love. No one can hand you faith. No one can hand you compassion. These come out of you because that is what you are. You see, and it's the mind that gets in the way of that rapture. And the mind gets in the way of that rapture by thinking it knows, by thinking it has the answers, by thinking there's a reason to be anxious, by tying itself into a thought or belief system. This pulls the humanness out of you directly. It disaligns you completely. You will only find fulfillment, passion, amalgamation, identity through love. That's how you're going to find those things. They're not going to come to you through a book. They're not going to come to you through directives. They're not going to come to you because you believed correctly. That is not how that stuff works. You see? And so AI is a different, it's a different, you can't compare yourself to it. Excuse me. We're simply the programmers of it, but we're not. But AI is not, doesn't have a soul. It's not human. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's have this conversation. Hi, Oil Man. Okay, so I never really met God, just interacted with God's creation. What is creation? What is creation if it's not God? Right? What is animating the tree to grow if it's not God? What is animating you if it's not God? Any answer you have for that is short-sighted. If you have an answer for any of the questions I just gave you, it's short-sighted because God is past words. So as long as you keep asking me if I've interacted with God's, if I've interacted with God and I haven't because I've just interacted with his creation, you're missing the point entirely, because what is creation? And because you don't have that profundity in regard when it comes to creation, you will never realize the beauty and purity that it is. Because you're downgrading it when you say, oh, you just interacted with God's creation. You didn't interact with God. That's a narcissist that says that. That's the hard truth for you, my friend. You have to get past that stuff. You have to get past materialism, Oil Man. As long as you're buried in materialism, you will never grow. Thank you very much. That's exactly right, King. You are exactly right. I have not. I've never left my body. Haven't done that, though I know it can be done. Okay, I want to read this. What is this? Hey, Chuck, you can still be profitable in life, but it is the offering of truth that must not be monetized. This is still a material realm that needs to be navigated. I'm sorry, don't understand what you're saying there. You can still be, I don't know what life has anything to be profitable, but okay. But it is the offering of truth that must not be monetized. Okay, well, none of my channels are monetized, and I only have a GoFundMe to help support this, but I'm not trying to get money out of you guys or trying to coerce you. So what I am is offering, an offering. Okay. He had serious problems. He did. He had serious problems. Yes, he did. I completely agree with you. Yeah, Cliff High does a good job explaining how AI can never be human exactly. Okay, let's continue. Thanks, guys. This has been awesome. I'm going to come back to comments at the end, but let's continue because we got more to cover. I've got, a few more slides to go, so let's keep on trucking here. Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah. So we're going to start on the symbolism of the Rosy Cross. This is a major symbol for Rosicrucianism. The Rose Cross or Rosy Cross is the central and most prominent symbol within Rosicrucianism. Rosicrucianism is an esoteric organization with roots in 17th century Europe when it was formally organized. Much like many religions, belief systems, each edition integrates and augments former established knowledge sciences from ages past to form itself. In other words, Rosicrucianism is just like all these other systems. It's utilizing ancient knowledge to form an understanding so that the local or the current society can grasp this knowledge that is past words. For example, the celestial animals called the zodiac of ancient agrarian tribes became the kings and queens of Babylon and Egypt. Those are the gods of Babylon and Egypt, anthropomorphized into a mythology relevant to that society. You see the switch? They're just recostuming the underlying central principle. The kings and queens of Babylon and Egypt became the gods and goddesses of Greece and Rome: Zeus, Athena, Poseidon, Hermes. These eventually became the 12 disciples and the son of God, the zodiac, recostumed yet again. And again, you can see the line. So the ancient zodiac became the kings and queens of Babylon and Egypt, which became the gods and goddesses of Greece and Rome, which became the 12 disciples and the Son of God in the zodiac. Recostumed, recostumed, recostumed. That's what you are seeing passing over time. Everybody's got their own unique way of formalizing this. Rosicrucianism is no different in this recostuming of spirituality effect, for it is composed of mystery school esoterica wisdom originally cast during the times of Atlantis, Lemuria, and the pyramids, 30 to 50 K BC. This is ancient secret knowledge from times long before the organized West, or even humans at that point, was surreptitiously shaped in Nicaea to a deception rather than a revelation. Long before Rosicrucianism was formalized in the 17th century, the human rights, traditions, and initiations that fostered human relationship to the cosmos were recomplexified. An understanding of this was passed down mainly through oral tradition, symbolism, and myths. And we talked about that in the tarot, where we talked about a lot of that stuff was passed down through oral tradition. This complex yet revitalizing knowledge was memorized and conveyed through an initiation rite, out of which only the priest class was installed. See, there's the beginning of your exclusivism. Meaning little was written down or organized for the masses until the printing press, and what we have now are but scraps from the original ethos. So Rosicrucianism can be thought of as a type of spiritual structure based on ancient agrarian sun-chasing cultures obsessed with nature. This nature-oriented sun-bathed topology undergirds and outlines the symbols that compose Rosicrucianism. Its symbols render a larger world than the one seen, or can be described in words. Rosicrucianism is a conceptualization of nature sans theology, since nature is past words. Understanding then is evoked through esoterica, release, symbolism, and subtle intuition rather than direct words. Something seen with the mind, not the eyes, as I mentioned earlier. For symbolism, like nature, God, has no final meaning, yet it structures itself in a way that the sensitive mind can interpret meaning. Therefore, meaning and understanding is initiated through a way of perceiving oneself, the universe, and life past the allure of materialism. And as we all know, religion is materialism. In many ways, the Rosicrucian cross is similar to the four functions of mythology, we have been moonlighting since the beginning of my live shows. Its symbolism instructs by way of intuition, third eye sight, and personal experience by relating the individual to the cosmic, unspeakable sense in oneself and in all things. Identity is not a quest for something lost or gained, but a realization of who you are, because identity cannot be put into words. Rosicrucianism attempts a mythology then that accords the individual by the ways of nature, which require life sacrifice to realize. For it is through the Shen, the gut mind, that awareness identity is understood. In many ways, Rosicrucianism is the Western version of Buddhism. And the reason why I say that is that it is a dialogue. It is not a belief system. Please understand that. Okay? Rosicrucianism is a mythology. It's suggestions. It's subjective and suggestive. Just like the gods and goddesses of Greece and Rome, it's not they are to be examples of the powers that are already within you. So when you read about jealousy or consumption or murder or any of these stories, these are all powers that are within you. And by studying the mythology, you learn to understand the powers that are in you and learn to equate them so that they don't lead you down a path that's destructive. Can you see that? It's a Rosicrucianism is simply a recostuming of these ancient god and goddesses idea, but it's costumed in the philosophical sense in seeing these gods and goddesses not outside you, but inside you as the principles, the emotions, the inspiration, the drive that pushes you. Those are the gods and goddesses that are in you. That's the fire that is burning inside of you. You see, and the philosophical approach is to awaken that fire, that realization inside of you. That's why aligning to an external religion takes you away from the fire that you are and seeking a fire outside of yourself, which is a dead end. The philosophical approach, the Rosicrucian approach, the Buddhist approach, is one of philosophy, in that the search inward, looking inward, is what reveals to you through the emotions, through the intangibles, the real aspects, tangibilities, understandings of life. Tangible in the sense of the third eye, which is the real meat, which is the real juice. Okay? Okay. And there we have the four functions of mythology, which I've talked to you guys many times. And that is what this cross is intending to do. It's intending to present a metaphysical picture, which is the overall picture of the cross itself, a cosmological picture, which is the rose in the center, which deals with the celestial realm, and I'm going to get to that momentarily. Then the sociological aspect, in that Rosicrucianism is something that is shared with and by others. So there's a social aspect to Rosicrucianism, in that I am having conversations with others which help me know who I am. And then finally, the pedagogical. That is the teaching aspect of this cross, which shows you the meanings of the symbolism, which shows you in words ways to conceptualize the symbolism. That is the pedagogical aspect of Rosicrucianism. So it is following in the idea of the four functions of mythology. Awesome. Moving right along. Rosicrucianism, like Buddhism, is a walking meditation. Practitioners contemplate the meanings of the symbols and their insight over the course of their life every day. This is not to solve anything, but to accord everything by way of common sense. That's why you mull it over and over and over and over again and pull out the common sense that's already within you to make sense of it, because there's no words. Rosicrucianism is not something that is grasped in one setting. It is something contemplated, not the system itself, but what it is pointing towards. For instance, gym equipment is not the point of the gymnast. The point is experiencing the rapture by engaging the equipment. And that's what I was talking about earlier. When you engage the rapture of the instrument, you are engaging the profundity right there, because you are engaging the instrument. And it's the same thing with the gym equipment. The gym equipment helps usher in rapture to the gymnast who, quote unquote, plays on the gym equipment. And this brings this feeling of sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment. The point is experiencing the rapture by engaging the equipment. Therefore, the more one studies and contemplates the Rosicrucian equipment and its spiritual ethos, the more one avails themselves to understand a deeper sense, which is also known as rapture. Do you see how you're following? By following and mulling over Rosicrucianism, you're following the same pattern as the gymnast who goes to the gym every day and practices on that equipment every day and familiarizes themselves with the equipment every day. And they have a social aspect and talking to other people about it. And they're mulling it over and they're working with it, working with it, working with it. They're in that facility, the gymnasium. It's the same thing with your mind. And you have this equipment available to you, mythologies, which are equipment for your mind, meaning it's workout equipment for your mind. And when you engage those mythologies, you are working out your mind. Because guess what? Your brain will atrophy. Once you think you've got the answers, once you think you've got the right religion, you will atrophy because that's the only thing you're going to focus on and know. That's a dead end, friend. That's anxiety, friend. It's a dead end. There's only 66 books there, brother. Sorry, it's not good enough. You can't describe life, religion, or spirituality, God, with 66 books, man, in the Bible. Can't do it. Just like if I wrote down 66 books about you and all these events about you and said everything about you, it's not you. You're not a book. Spirituality is not a book. It's not something to fix. It's something to amalgamate. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. These are the 7 aphorisms of creation, form the thesis of Rosicrucian secret doctrine. They provision a metaphysical blueprint for understanding the universe and humanity's place within it. Here are the aphorisms. The one cause that all existence emanates from the eternal omnipresent one, returning to it in unity. These are the basic 7 main principles, of Rosicrucianism. Number 2, the emanation of the many. The many diverse forms arise from the one. That's what I was mentioning earlier to the gentleman who said I wasn't experiencing God by experiencing rapture, and resolve back into it. Follow the patterns. The universal frame of life. A universal life force animates all beings and phenomena. That's also what I asked that gentleman that said I wasn't experiencing God. Everything is animated by this force that is unspeakable. The universe will to be. This life force is driven by a cosmic will, a sacred geometry, a magnetism that self-manifests, self-organizes, and evolves. And the best example I can give of self-organizing, of sacred geometry, is a water funnel. Pull the plug out of the bottom of your bathtub, wait a minute, and eventually a funnel will form. That is the water self-organizing because it has that knowledge within it. And so when you initiate this profundity, which is the funnel forming out of nothing, or out of the water just forming itself simply from a drain at the bottom that is sucking. What is that? That's magnetism. And the magnetism is sucking that water into form. It self-organizes. And what is the geometry of the funnel? Sacred geometry. You are seeing it manifesting. It manifests right in front of you. And it's the same thing with your life. You will also manifest sacred geometry when you come into a deeper and deeper understanding of yourself. The 7 planes of consciousness. Existence is structured into 7 interconnected planes from elemental to divine. The law of cycles and reincarnation. All things progress in cyclical, spiral paths through rebirth. What was the first thing I saw when I inhaled DMT for the first time? Everything began to spin. And this was nature saying to me, right as I began to rip myself out of the fabric of the conscious world, that was nature saying to me, friend, you need to know the world you're going into is a spinning world. It's a self-vivifying world. It self-organizes. The 7-fold soul of man, the soul is 7-fold with spiritual unfoldment, endlessly unveiling its divine essence. And that just simply means everything is self-complexifying from the one. It's all coming out, coming out, coming out in all these different forms. In other words, monopolypantheism. These aphorisms integrate with the 7 planets and the 7 cosmic hermetic principles, providing a comprehensive framework for spiritual evolution, cosmic order, and practical application in personal and societal transformation. The principles align with Rosicrucianism's esoteric mission, those 7 principles there, to guide humanity towards enlightenment through hidden knowledge and pattern. You see, it's simply helping to suggest. It is not telling you. It is suggesting to you. If you consider the world within these 7 principles right here, these 7 aphorisms, a larger world will be rendered to you. A larger, in other words, a larger sense of identity. Because guess what? Those 7 principles not only apply to nature, but they apply to you. Why? Because you're a nature creature. And it can't be otherwise. So you come out of the one cause. You are an emanation of the many. You are the universal flame of life. You are the universal will to be. You are the 7 planes of consciousness. Can't you see it, folks? It is not only you, but it is all around you. The law of cycles and reincarnation. That's you. The 7-fold soul of man. That's you. And guess what, folks? This is all Hermeticism. Mentalism, vibration, polarity, correspondence, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. That makes the world, friend. Hermes, who was the quintessence of Hermeticism, is an embodiment, an icon of the philosophies and characteristics of nature, in the same way the Buddha is an embodiment of love and compassion, or Jesus is an embodiment of atonement and grace. These figures are archetypes for larger principles. Their philosophies are their emphasis and value. See, their philosophy and emphasis are their value, not their historicity. It doesn't matter if they existed. Let it go. Stop trying to force nature to be something it is not. Let it go. Let those individuals be aphorisms for the life well lived. That's what they're there for. They don't want you worshiping them any more than your parent wants you worshiping them. They don't want that. Leadership, a good leader, a good individual that is guiding another, doesn't want to be worshipped. They don't want that. They want to shine the light so that you see on your own the truth. It's a totally different approach. Hermeticism will help get you there. The Rosicrucian cross and its associated symbols, and my nature series will help get you there. And its associated symbols encapsulate a spiritual philosophy that emphasizes the pursuit of knowledge, personal transformation through spiritual alchemy, and the integration of conscious awareness into daily life. That's the walking meditation, my friend. The cross is often viewed by Rosicrucians as a symbol of immortality, sacrifice, and death. So to resurrect, this is you resurrect, not Jesus, not Buddha, not Muhammad, not any of those guys. You experience the resurrection, into a new understanding and behavior in the world and towards oneself. First, the mind changes. Key, right here. First, the mind changes, then the behavior. This cross in the Rosicrucian doctrine is to help facilitate that transformation. And here, let's reiterate again, Rosicrucians as a symbol of immortality, sacrifice, and death, so to resurrect into a new understanding and behavior in the world and towards oneself. And what is the resurrection? What is that? That's the rebirth principle. What happens when you go through the emptying process? Kenosis, what happens? You're reborn. So the rebirth principle is not for someone else. It's for you. It's you. It's not for Jesus. It's not for Buddha, Muhammad, any of these other cats from the past. It's not about them. It's not about them. It's about where they're pointing. And they are pointing to this space in you, your identity. You are the that which is no that. And until you see that, you see your mind won't become appropriate because you'll be clingy. And it is only through release that I find fulfillment. Release. Letting go of the beliefs, letting go of the religion, letting go of the assurity. This is where you find peace. Peace is not found by assuring peace. That's only preparation for war. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Next. Cross-shaped objects are commonly used in occultism to represent the 4 physical elements. Here, each arm is colored to represent an element, and that's now you're going to start to understand this cross, as an element of the physical natural world. So there at the top, the yellow, that's air. There on the right, that's blue, that's water. And there on the bottom, that's black, that's earth. And there on the left is fire. The white on the upper portion of the bottom of the arm represents the spirit, the 5th element, the ether. That's you, my friend, your true identity, right there where you see that 6-pointed cross constellated by planets, right? That's you right there in the center. Earth, matter. You are the 5th element. You are an emanation of the ether, just like the celestial realm is an emanation of the ether. And when you see yourself as an emanation of nature, as an emanation of the ether, guess how much better you're going to feel about yourself? Just realizing that you are the ether, that you are from the ether, and that you are ether manifest. This is the kind of perspective that changes you from looking at yourself as a fallen sinner to looking at yourself as manifested perfection. And the psychologies go in opposite directions, because you're starting at a different point with the two. You're starting at the opposite point. One side you're saying I'm perfect because I'm whole. The other side you're saying I'm a sinner and I need forgiveness. That leads in a diabolical direction philosophically and psychologically. And I wrote about all that in my book. So that's where that goes. But you can see how you're on an entirely different trek. You're pursuing an entirely different telos, when your telos is not forgiveness, but your telos is fulfillment, meaning the integration of your gifts and giving them to the world. That's where you're going to find fulfillment. You're not going to find fulfillment by saying the right prayer. That doesn't bring you fulfillment, man. That brings you imagination materialism, man. It doesn't fulfill you. I did that for 40 years, and I have discovered this other side, and there's no comparison. There's no comparison. The cross itself represents dualism. See, that's where we're at. Be where you are. You're experiencing dualism as a being. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Represents dualism, 2 forces in conflicting directions, yet united at a central point. The point of tension, the center of the rose. That's a rose there. The circular portion of that cross in the center is called the rose. And it is a revivifying of the rose in the center. So you see the Hebrew letters on those are petals. Each one represents, we're going to get into it, each one represents something. And then as you get closer and closer to center, you see the rose again. This again is showing you the fractal aspect of life, of yourself. You are a repeat of the celestial powers. Have you ever thought about that? And this cross is exemplifying it right there in the center where that's the rose. We'll keep going. You'll understand as we keep going. Okay, purity and symbol of passion, heavenly. The cross is a symbol. I can't read that because it's behind. Okay, I can't see the first 2 words because it's behind some kind of label that's on my computer. But anyway, purity and a symbol of passion, heavenly perfection and earthly passion, virginity and fertility, death and life. This is the cross. The rose is the flower of the goddess Venus, but also the blood of Adonis and Christ. It is a symbol of transmutation, that of eating food from the earth and transmogrifying it into life. The rose garden is a symbol of paradise. It is the place of the mystic marriage and the chemical wedding. Go back here real quickly to this where I wrote here. It is a symbol of transmutation, that of eating food from the earth and transmogrifying it into life. Let me ask you a question. When you eat food, do you know how you digest it? Do you know every chemical process that happens, every chemical that it's released, and the amount that it is released in your body to digest the food? Can you tell me that? For every meal, to the nanogram. Can you tell me that? You tell me exactly the metabolic processes from the very point that you put the food into your mouth until the very point you're sitting on the toilet. Can you tell me that exactly? No, you can't. That's because it's transmogrification. It's magical. It's magical. And even the digestive process of digesting food is a form of transmogrifying it, because it takes the solid matter and it transforms it into energy. That's transmogrifying. And so what does the spiritual teaching, the spiritual intellect show you? What does it show you? That you are a transmogrifying of the spiritual world in duality. So in the same way the food makes energy, you create the enigma by being here. You are the enigma, just like the digesting of food is the enigma. It's a transmogrifying process. And when you transmogrify, when you go through the process of kenosis, you are emptying and refilling again with a new type of spirituality that transmogrifies the world, that changes your perspective, that changes everything. It's the same magical process that's happening. And it's all around you, happening all the time. And that kind of awareness, being aware of that, puts you into a world of awe and wonder, because everything is transmogrifying from the spiritual realm into the material realm. And it's a miracle. Dualism is a miracle. Stop seeing it as evil. See it as a miracle. Okay. The rose garden is a symbol of paradise. It is the place of the mystic marriage and the chemical wedding. In ancient Rome, roses were grown in the funeral gardens to symbolize resurrection. The thorns of the rose represent suffering, sacrifice, and the fall from paradise. These concepts existed long before Christianity appropriated the from death comes life allegory. And as you know, Christianity stole that and bastardized it into a historical event. It was always meant to be symbolistic. At the very center, now getting right to it, at the very center of the Rosicrucian cross is a 5-petaled rose that represents you. Right there. Right there. There it is. 5-petaled rose. And guess what? The 5 senses and 5 extremities that bring the universe to your sensory experience. Taste, touch, smell, hearing, and sight from the 2 arms, 2 legs, and head. That's you. Thus, the rose represents the congealing of matter and spirit, because you're both. You're both. And so that you're both. And so that little rose in the middle represents you in the midst of this profundity, which the cross is representing, the profundity, the transmogrification of everything. The 4 leaves represent the 4 elements that sustain life: air, water, fire, and earth. Also represented in the cross, top, sides, and bottom lengths. It's also represented there, those 4 different aspects. You are the 5th element, the ether, the that which is no that, the center rose of which all other forms are reflection, sacred geometry and platonic solids. Tell me what on the earth is not a formation of sacred geometry and platonic solids. For my friend that asked a question earlier, there you're seeing God everywhere right there when you realize that everything is forms of the ether, because it's sacred geometry and it's through platonic solids. You see, this brings the miracle to your life. So you see there, what is constellating the rose there in the center are the 4 elements, which bring the rose in the center about. They bring about the glucose, the sugar necessary for the petals to grow, because the petals grow from the sugar in the roots. So see these leaves as sun gathering energy that then feeds you. The 4 elements feed you, which gives you the incredible experience of being alive in a dualistic world as a being, as an eternal being. Do you see? And it's those 4 elements of nature that are causing this rapture to occur. It's right there in the cross. That's what these symbolisms mean. That's what this symbolistic stuff means in this cross. You're going to never see the Rosicrucian cross the same again. The yellow air mind cross represents the human experience, the sacrifice of the soul's oneness to form into material reality, a composition of spirit and matter. The cross represents the tension, the sacrifice necessary to be a human being and have the material experience while identifying as a spiritual, immortal being. And that's what the cross represents. And I've told you guys about that. Remember, the point of tension of the cross is there where the intersection is between the vertical and the horizontal. That point of tension is the mind. is the mind, and that is how you are having the experience that you're having, because you can be aware of a now. And that's what manifests out from the ether, the vertical and the horizontal lines. And you're an expression of that as an immortal being. Working out from the center rose, okay, so we see there, working out from the center rose, we see the green leaves and yellow cross. We find the 22-petaled flower, the rose, rendered in rings corresponding to the rose-petaled imagery at the center. This pattern reflects the Hermetic traditions, as above, so below, polarity and correspondence. Don't you see it? Everything is a reflection of you. You are a reflection of everything. All 22 petals each have a Hebrew letter imprinted on them. That's the Kabbalah in this. That corresponds to the 22 major arcana cards in the tarot and the Kabbalah. Did you know that? So these 22 petals, you see them, also are represented in the tarot with the 22 major arcana. I bet you didn't know that. The Rosicrucianism directly connected to tarot. This denotes Judeo, that's the Kabbalah there, the Hebrew, denotes Judeo and Celtic mysticism commingling inside Rosicrucianism. The 22 petals are divided into 3, 7, and 12 numbered rings. You can see them. I marked them in green, respectively, each representing the order and fractal hierarchy of the cosmos. And here's just a quick example. The 3 petals there in the center, right? You see the yellow one at the top, the orange one, and the blue one that are directly connected to the cross, okay? Those are the mother letters, and they represent the 3 basic alchemical elements, salt, mercury, and sulfur. These dance upon the earth, bringing form, life, structure, and experience out from and back to the ether, the 5th element, you. The exact placement of letters on the petals may vary slightly in different Rosicrucian designs, and they do. I researched it. But the standard Kabbalistic and tarot correspondences are consistent because there's 22 of them, and that is Hebrew mystical writing. Other letters are associated with the elements air, water, and fire, respectively, and they are represented on the innermost circle of the 3 petals in there. You see them? So here's, I'm not going to go through all of them, but here's the center. 3 petals. Here's a larger view. So there's the top one, Aleph, the first letter. I think that's the first letter in the Hebrew language. I'm not sure. But there's Aleph, and its association is Mercury and air. And Aleph represents the breath of life, the primal force of spirit, and the connection between the divine, Keter, and wisdom, Chokmah. In Rosicrucianism, it symbolizes the initiating sparks of consciousness, the universal life force, and the balance between opposites. It is the fool's journey, linked to the tarot card's Fool card, embodying potential and divine inspiration. So that's what that one represents, that petal. The next one, which is right there where you are, is Mem, and it's associated with sulfur and fire, meaning Mem signifies creation, institution, and the flow of emotions. In Rosicrucianism, it represents the purification and the transformative power of spiritual vivification. It is associated with the tarot's judgment card, signifying spiritual awakening and growth. And then finally, Shin, which is associated with salt and water. And its meaning is the Shin embodies divine water, spiritual metamorphosis, and transformation. Doesn't water transform the soil when the soil soaks it up? Doesn't water, water is a solvent, and it dissolves things. And so this this idea is dissolving the material mind so as to have the spiritual understanding. It represents the penetrating waters of the spirit, the descent of divine ether into the mind, and the alchemical process of transmutation. It is linked to the tarot's Hanged Man card, rendering surrender and inner wisdom are gained through perspective. And you guys remember the Kabbalah we studied? That's what I was referring to when I said here, right here where it says Kesed to Netzach, Netzach to Had, Yesod to Had. That is all the Kabbalah right there, which aligns the energies and the planets and obviously the tarot. This is all contained in that rosy cross, the deeper meaning of everything. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm going to leave this slide up. You can take a picture of it, but we're going to get through because there's a lot in this. So this is just showing you that each of these petals represents these different characteristics of the human life. And as I've told you guys before, the major arcana, the tarot, renders every emotional feeling and experience. And this is doing a similar thing, yet it's doing with a cross rather than cards. Here's another set. And the 7 outside of those the three basic elements, the next set is the 7 planets. And those petals align to the 7 planets. And as you can see, you there are in the center as the rose, and then you are constellated by the constellations in the sky. And that's what that is referencing, that you are a miracle within a miracle. You are a cosmos within a cosmos. And that's what that portion, the center portion of the rose, is representing. And each one aligns to a tarot card and a different Hebrew letter. That's what those are on the Rosy Cross. The third ring, that last ring, is composed of 12 petals, which align astrotheologically with the 12 zodiac signs, thus grounding this Rosicrucianism symbol in both the celestial and earthly realms. In Rosicrucianism, the Hebrew letters on the cross are not just symbolic, but are also practice tools for meditation and ritual. Remember how I mentioned the gym equipment? Well, this is the mental equipment for Rosicrucianism, the spiritual equipment. The adept visualizes or contemplates those letters to align with their corresponding energies, facilitating spiritual transformation akin to alchemical transmutation. This is how you align yourself. The idea is that the more one meditates on the symbolism of the Rosicrucian cross, the more one understands the order of the cosmos and thus the order of oneself. You see. And then here are the 12 petals described with their associated cards and meanings. You can screenshot that. And by the way, if you guys want PDFs of my work, just send me a text message or send me an email. If you guys want these slides from my talks, it's just easier if I just send it to you. So shoot me an email. And my email is contactchuckjr@yahoo.com. And I will send you these slides from my shows so you can have them for your own reference and use. And there's no charge. I'll give them to you for free. Okay. And then notice on the cross itself, there's a repeating symbolism. So the 5-pointed star and the 3 prima right there on the blue you see are also on the yellow, are also on the red, and are also on the multicolor. That's nature, the black. They're at the bottom. So those are all representing similar symbologies because they're all the same. So sulfur, the soul, represents volatility, heat, consciousness, the affixing agent, fire, transformation, ambition, and creativity. That's what the sulfur, meaning the soul, is representing. And then we have the salt, which is the body, the next one down, symbolizes body structure, stability, crystallization, which is what you are, matter, form, physical, habitat, or habit, routine, redeemed matter. That's you, the salt. And then finally, mercury, quicksilver, that's the spirit, mind, fluidity, volatility, adaptability, flow, connective force between realms, reconciler of opposites, and the intuition. So what the cross is doing is it's stating that these are elements of you. These are portions of you. And you see yourself in the cross, and therefore you then better understand what these symbols represent, because they're representing you. The volatility, the heat, the consciousness, the body, the structure, the stability, the spirit, the mind, the fluidity. This is you. And this cross is honoring that by showing these symbols and showing that this is you incarnated. You incarnate with these materials. The 3 primes, the tria prima, as defined by the 16th century alchemist Paracelsus, that's that dude on the top left, are the fundamental principles or elements believed to constitute all matter and influence both physical and spiritual transformation: sulfur, mercury, and salt. Sulfur represents the soul or the burning active principle associated with the spiritual essence, passion, and the transformative fire of consciousness. Right? Mercury embodies the spirit, a fluid and volatile principle that connects the material and divine, symbolizing intellect, intuition, and the principle of change. Salt signifies body, the fixed and material principle that provides structure and stability, grounding the other two in the physical world. Together, these three form the philosophical foundation of alchemical processes, symbolizing the interplay of spirit, soul, and body in the quest for the philosopher's stone. The principle, this is the philosopher's stone, the principle which accords black and white, and the spiritual enlightenment, which is the principle of revitalizing who you are, spirituality, which is the density, and matter, which is the effect. That's you. And do you guys remember this slide from my nature series? Spirit is density. Matter is the effect. Reality is the illusion created by the intermingling of density and effect, spirit and matter. That's reality. That's you. Are you not? Are you not a spiritual creature and a creature composed of matter? Are you not both? You absolutely are both. And so your spirit is your density, right? And then your body is the matter. It's the effect. You see? This will help you understand yourself. It'll help you identify who you are. The pentagram is a 5-pointed star, and in Rosicrucianism, it represents the earthly or sensorial experience of the soul in the material world of the infinite. And as we all know, the pentagram has been used by evil and Satanists, but it also symbolizes pure things that have nothing to do with evil and Satanism, okay? Understand, symbols have many meanings. Many meanings. The pentagram is an occult symbol going back millennia that represents protection, power, and authority. Its 5 points are linked to humanity and the 5 senses of the nervous system, the 5 appendages, and the 5 earthly elements. These are all connected. It's not a coincidence. These are the outpourings of the material world and its sensorial glory. Overseen by the 5 major signs of the zodiac, the 5 points of the star symbolize Leo as the fire. That's the bottom right. That's the fire. Taurus as earth. That's the left, the bottom left. Aquarius as air. That's the left side of the horizontal line of the star. And then you guys this will throw you a curveball. But the bird, which is Scorpio, as water, and the wheel as the sun, which is the ether. These confer life, potential, and raw energy directly into the material existence. The sun was once considered God's way of manifesting out from the ether, for without the sun and stars, there is no life. And then referring back to the bird and why that is considered water and not air. In alchemy, the eagle represents the volatile aspect of matter, the part that rises or flies during the alchemical process. This is the phoenix, as opposed to the fixed or earthy aspect, often symbolized by a lion or a dragon. Volatility is associated with the element water in its spiritual sense, as water can evaporate and ascend, mirroring the soul's perfection. The alchemical process involves changes like calcination, dissolution, sublimation, and coagulation. The eagle appears in the sublimation stage, where the substance or soul is refined and elevated, aligning with Scorpio's transformation from the scorpion to the eagle. This process is linked to water's dissolving and purifying properties, as seen in alchemical texts like the Rosarium Philosophorum in the 16th century. Finally, in Rosicrucianism, the eagle on the Rosicrucian cross evokes this alchemical water, representing the soul's purification through emotional and spiritual trials. That's Scorpion's domain. See, that's where the metamorphosis is taking place, from the poison, from the bite. That's where the metamorphosis is initiated. The bite of freedom. The water element in this context is not literal, but metaphorical, embodying the fluidity of change and renewal. Scorpio as a water sign corresponds to the alchemical stage of dissolution and putrefaction, where the ego or base material is broken down to allow for rebirth. The eagle represents the outcome of this process, the soul's emergence as a purified spiritual entity. The eagle's association with water in alchemy stems from its ability to fly over the metaphorical waters of the subconscious, gaining insight and mastery. This mirrors Scorpio's journey from the depths of emotion to the heights of spiritual vision, as depicted on the Rosicrucian cross. And then the hexagram, this is your spirituality, an occult symbol that represents the celestial or spiritual world, the union of opposites, the chemical wedding, that's you, my friend, emanating the physical and spiritual worlds, which you do you not? Do you not emanate the physical and spiritual worlds? You absolutely do. You absolutely do, and I hope that you can see that. 2 triangles compose the 6-pointed hexagram. One triangle is descending, representing air or spirit moving down into the material world. That's what you did. The other triangle ascends upward, representing the material world moving in and commingling with the spiritual world. That is what you're doing. You see, that's what you did, and that's what you are doing. This symbol of the cross covers it all. This intercourse of opposites corresponds to Hermeticism, the religion of polarity, which is all about, which is all part and parcel of seeing through the dualistic illusion. And then here, the 6-pointed star represents spiritual protection and the celestial realm, and it represents the 5 observable planets with the naked eye. This corresponds to the 6 planets, the 6 celestial bodies of the naked eye cosmos. The moon, Mercury. Moon is at the bottom, then Mercury to the left, and then Venus on the right there, and then Mars, middle portion left, and then Jupiter, middle portion right, and finally Saturn. Now, Saturn reigns supreme as it is considered the most spiritually charged and the highest authority planet due to its lengthy distance from Earth, its rings symbolizing a crown, and maintaining the longest eye observable or eye observed orbit. And this is why the Luciferians and the Satanists chose Saturn as their principal planet, because it is the ruling planet. It's the authority planet. It's the crowned planet. And they bastardize it. See, it's a beautiful image here. This is a great way you can see where, like, the Order of the Golden Dawn and Satanism has ostracized the true meaning of this symbol, which was supposed to mean you right there in the center, the Earth, you right there, surrounded by the constellations, by the planets and the moon. And these are guiding and influencing you. And so this brings about an understanding of you from the celestial sense. And this is why the Satanists made this into an evil sign, so that you would never realize this is actually you, not Satan. This is you. And the power and the celestial realm that you represent and are from. I mean, absolutely brilliant. And now finishing up the INRI. I won't cover all of this. I'll just cover some of it. The Rose Cross is associated with a number of different schools of thought, including that of the Golden Dawn, Thelema, and the Rosicrucians. Each group offers somewhat different interpretations of the symbol. This should not be surprising, because magical, occult, and esoteric symbols are frequently carry intermingled, complex Let me start again. This should not be surprising, because magical, occult, and esoteric symbols are frequently, that's miswritten then, frequently carry intermingled, complex interpretations to communicate ideas impossible to express in words. So each belief system, religion, has its own way of interpreting this INRI. And of course, each thinks they are the only correct interpretation. And this is basically what that's pointing towards. In Rosicrucianism, INRI serves as a multifaceted symbology that bridges deist, alchemical, and Kabbalistic traditions. It encapsulates the journey of the soul through suffering, the cross, purification, alchemical fire, and spiritual rebirth, the rose. These are all represented on that cross. The letters are a reminder of the adept's path to reconcile the opposites, material and spiritual, human and divine, achieving the great work of inner transformation through consciousness expansion. The placement of INRI on the cross arms emphasizes its role as a guiding principle radiating from the rose, the soul, the real you, at the center. It signifies the divine law governing the cosmos and the individual's alignment with that law through spiritual practice. Now, the Christian interpretation of the INRI is interesting. The letters INRI, which is an abbreviation of the Latin phrase Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum, meaning Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. According to the Christian Bible, this phrase was inscribed on the cross where Jesus was supposedly executed at Golgotha, the place of skull, which was originally your actual skull, not a hill, emphasizing metaphorically a kenosis, the death of the self, the emptying of the mind, the release from ego, lopping of the head. But that's for another lecture. The point being that this has multiple meanings, and so the Christians will interpret it in that way, but I find this other interpretation to be much more efficacious, the alchemical interpretation. Ine natura renovatur integra, which translates by fire, nature is renewed entirely. This phrase reflects the alchemical process of transformation, where base materials or unrefined individual are purified through the spiritual fire, initiation to achieve a state of perfection or divine unity by emptying of material attachment. The Rosicrucianism itself is a symbol of this process, with the rose representing the soul's blossoming through alchemical work and the cross symbolizing the trials and sacrifices required. The fire of INRI signifies the spiritual energy that transmutes the adept, aligning with Rosicrucian goals of inner rebirth and enlightenment. And finishing up now, the Kabbalistic elemental interpretation in the Golden Dawn's Rose-Cross Layman, INRI is further analyzed through Kabbalistic and elemental lenses, often linked to Hebrew letters and their correspondences, as I showed you earlier. The letters are associated with specific Hebrew letters, zodiac signs, and elements as follows. I, the Latin I, linked to the Hebrew Yod, associated with Virgo, symbolizing precision, service, and the spark of divine creation. N, Latin N, linked to Hebrew Nun, associated with the Scorpio, symbolizing transformation, death, and rebirth. The R, the Latin R, linked to Hebrew Resh, associated with the Sun, symbolizing enlightenment, vitality, and divine radiance. And finally, the second I, again linked to Yod, reinforces the Virgo correspondence, emphasizing purity and spiritual focus. And finally, the last two slides to summarize. Soul, consciousness, and spiritual enlightenment. The rose placed at the center of the cross, there you can see it now, and now you know all about it, symbolizes the soul, consciousness, and the unfolding of spiritual awareness. Its petals represent the different stages of spiritual development and enlightenment as the soul blossoms and expands towards its divine potential in material matter. And the rose, when fully open, can be seen as representing the alchemical ideal of the philosopher's stone, not as a literal physical object, but as a state of inner perfection and unity. And finally, the last slide tonight. The cross, it's the harmonization of opposites, the great work, which you now know. I hope you guys are picking this stuff up. You guys should be picking this stuff up by now. The central position of the rose on the cross signifies the harmonious integration of the spirit and material aspects of being. This union represents the goal of alchemical transformation, where the base elements of the human psyche are transmuted into a higher, refined state of consciousness. The rose and cross together symbolize the successful completion of the great work, the magnum opus of alchemy, signifying the adept's journey of self-realization and union with the divine. And finally, in conclusion, the Rosicrucian cross and Rosicrucian rose and cross embody the alchemical principle of transforming the earthly self through conscious effort and inner work, leading to the full blossoming of the spiritual telos within the individual. We did it. I hope that has been enlightening for you. Let's go to comments and see if you guys have any question. Thank you, Roy. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. This is interesting. Thomas Chase. Hi, Tom. Why do the controllers fear humanity having the spiritual understanding that because you will no longer obey, Thomas. This goes back to the egregore. I have 2 live videos that were really good on the egregore, and they are labeled on my YouTube page as Fathoms of Egregore. So when you go to my live tab, you'll see all my live videos. You'll see the word Fathoms, and that's Fathoms of Egregore. There are 2 videos. They explain precisely your question here and why learning these things disempowers those who control us, because they have been controlling us through ignorance. So learning these deeper principles brings you to an awareness whereby you no longer will see them as an authority. You'll see them as a con, and you will not follow a con. You will not listen to a con. You will not obey a con. And the whole point of what they're trying to do is to get you to obey, to follow the rules that they have set up. But when you become of higher mind, when you realize the deeper sense, you see you can't be controlled. You will no longer enable the egregore. You will no longer enable their lies. You will no longer believe them, because you won't believe you're a sinner anymore. You won't believe that you're separated from God anymore. You won't believe in these small ideas of God, these materialistic ideas of the world. You will no longer buy any of it, because you have moved into a higher revelation, which is found through these esoteric disciplines. That's why it's so important. If you ever want to release from the binds that the world puts on you, it is through spiritual alchemy, alchemizing the material world into a spiritual essence. And so therefore you see it differently. You don't see it from a historical perspective. You see it from a profound or profundity perspective. And when you start doing that, you will start to behave more appropriately. Remember, the change of the mind comes before the change of the action. So you must change your perspective before you're going to change your behavior. Perspective is everything. That's why when you see yourself differently and see the world differently, you can change your opinion about it. And if you can change that opinion to one that is more in keeping and lucid with this idea of spiritual alchemy, you see, you open your world. You move beyond the veil. You move past the materialism. You no longer even care about the materialism, because you have found a fulfillment that is spiritually oriented, not conflict oriented. And what those purveyors of the egregore want you is in conflict. That's what they want you in, is in a state of conflict, because then you're fighting, you're clinging, you're holding, you're obeying, you're bowing. That's what happens when you're in conflict, because you're looking for a winner and you're looking for a loser, and you're going to bow to the winner because you're buried in dualism. You're buried in conflict. And dualism is supposed to be this beautiful sensorial experience, not this tragic experience that they are trying to tell you that it is. It is not. This is to be enjoyed. Your senses are there to feel the moment, to feel the now, to be fully present. And that is the last thing the controllers want, is for you to be fully present. That's the last thing you want. They want you seeking for a better future or regretting a bad past. That's where they want you. They never want you right in the middle, in the now, not adhering to either side, but actually following the principles of the now, which is the spiritual world. You see? Okay, what's some other questions? What Lancelot Dufresne question? Oh, this one here? Do we see Rose Cross in action anywhere today? You'll see it. You'll see it in other metaphors. So what you're seeing is, you're seeing the transformation of humanity right now. That is the blossoming rose in the center of the cross. Think of the little tiny rose in the center. That's you. Think of that also as humanity. Okay? And we are instigating the rapture, the the rings, the waves that are coming out from that center point, which is the rose, which is the petals. Think of the waves on the water, of the circular waves on the water. Think of that as a rose. And we are emanating out. Us, humanity, are emanating out from that center. And we are bringing about revelation, because we are rendering to people what those symbols actually mean in the larger sense, past what the religion is trying to tell you. Excuse me. Do you see? And so you can see this emergence. You can also see, let's look at the cross itself. I'll show you other examples. You see, you also see it represents the material matter, right? And it's representing the constellations and your place within that constellation. So this is a living metaphor right now. This cross is a living metaphor. And it's showing you your base elements and that those base elements compose the universe. You are a product of the universe. You are an emanation of the universe. You see, and you follow these principles, these natural laws that are rendered on the arms of this cross. And so you see its efficacy. You see the cross's efficacy simply by taking its principles and noticing that what is happening, the transformation that is happening on the planet. Everyone is changing. Everyone will change. And those that refuse to change will drown. Clinging to the past way it was, clinging to Pisces, clinging to the old conflictive understandings of God and the world and of the universe, these old conflictive understandings of oneself, and that you have to be forgiven, you have to be atoned. You see, and the cross is showing you a world past that. And perspective, when you see that world, perspective will change your behavior, will change your attitude, will change your entire ethos completely, naturally, through inspiration. Not because you're told, not because it's beaten into you. No, because you realize it through inspiration. You realize it through being inspired by what those symbols represent. And that is freaking beautiful. That is freaking beautiful. Yes, Charlie, become ungovernable. Yes. Yes. I subscribe to that idea. Yes, I've subscribed to that idea. Yes, they do. Because remember what I said. Remember what I said. The Order of the Golden Dawn and Satanists usurped that cross in the exact same way they usurped the message of Jesus and made it about forgiveness and atonement. It was never about that. It was about self-awareness. They take these symbols and bastardize them so you remain ignorant and lost. That's why you're seeing the Masons wearing that cross. They are engaged in a game to deceive you so that you will never know what that cross actually means and how enlivening and enlightening it is. Just like I shared with you tonight. They don't want that. They want you thinking it's Satanism. They want you thinking that you're going to go to hell. They want you thinking to be in fear. Because when you're in fear, they can control you. And the only way out of fear is wisdom, knowledge, awareness, experience, not teaching. It's like the gal that didn't want to be afraid of Black Widow spiders anymore. How did she conquer her fear? She learned about Black Widow spiders. Wisdom. She learned. And that took away her fear. So she didn't sit down one day and say, okay, I'm not going to be afraid of spiders anymore. She became unafraid. It came out of her because she learned. And it's the same thing with you. They want you in fear of yourself, thinking you're going to hell, thinking you're prone to wander, thinking you're prone to sin. That's what they want you thinking. And the only way to break that spell, that illusion, is wisdom. Seeing past the veil they put up. Because they told you were a sinner. They told you the world was fallen. They told you the world was doomed. And you believed it. And when you believe it, fear. So you enabled it because you believed it. That's why I did the series on the egregore. That's why I did it. So that people would stop enabling, would stop believing, would stop obeying. Stop obeying. Stop doing what you're told. Stop. Stop seeking outside yourself for answers. There's none there. They're all lies. Look inward. That's where you'll find the real answers. That's where you'll find the fulfillment. It's not going to come from something outside you any more than having a bunch of money is going to make you feel fulfilled. No, it won't. You must fulfill yourself through the inward search. That's why you see that. What is this? No, but I should. I love Jung. Jung is fantastic. I would have no problem reading that book. Yes. We're all unique. It's like a library is full of books, okay? Well, they're all doing a similar thing. They're filled with words, and you read them. And this tells you about the book, okay? But there's no two books that are the same in the library. They're totally unique. Each one is totally unique. Its own give, its own take, its own perspective. That's healthy, okay? And we are the same thing as the collective. We all got arms and legs. We're all sensorial beings. We're all oriented to spirit. We're all on our path to death in living life. We're all in a very similar position, but we all are unique. Every single person has a different view of the world. Every single person is going to have a different conclusion, different ideas about the world. This is healthy. That's why going into a library and reading a bunch of books is healthy. Going into places where people are and having discussions like we have in chat is healthy. Because every single one of us, every single person in this chat has their own unique understanding. That's freaking beautiful. And we can benefit from that by sharing with one another. That's where growth is. And it's not in a place where everybody is saying the same thing, coming to the same conclusions. There's no growth there. It's an echo chamber. And so that's why I love doing this and I love doing chat, because everybody's got their own take. And some people hate what I say. Some people like it. Some people are kind of eh. And that's beautiful. That's the way it should be. We shouldn't all be the same. We're not bots. We didn't come here to be a bot. We didn't come here to be a parrot. We did not come here to parrot what the authorities are saying. That's not why you came here. You didn't come here to obey an authority. That's not why you came here. That's not why you came here. You are your own self-governing authority. That's called self-responsibility. That's your job. That's not the authority's job. That's your job to grow. Thank you, Leon. I appreciate that. All these inversions. Yes, yes. They bastardized the spiritual world, folks. They never wanted you to awaken to who you are. That's why they did. That's why they invented all these religions, all this crap. Seriously. Fear. It's all just fear. It's all just fear. Yes, I like that phrase, Thomas. Thank you. Read more books. Make all your hobbies analog. Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Get out there and do some fishing, hiking, climbing, being with your family. Things that are not electronic. That's why I tell people when I do the tarot thing, get the electronics freaking out of the house. Yes. Yes, Jennifer. Or Grinifer. Very good. Yes. Yeah, right on, Lancelot. That's where you should be. Okay, this is great here. Okay, there's no need for me and my father to make up. We aren't enemies. There's no. I'm sorry if I've given that impression. I've tried to convey to you guys that there is no anger between me and my father. There's nothing between us in our relationship. I love my father unconditionally. My father loves me unconditionally. There's no doubt about it. Okay, I know that, and he knows that from me. Okay, there's nothing to resolve. My father simply has a different perspective than me, a totally different perspective, and that's okay. I celebrate that. That's why when we were on the trip, I didn't try and sell him on the Khazarian Mafia, sell him on esotericism and all this stuff. There's no use. My father's decided, and that's where he's going to land, and I love him in that space. Great. It's his choice. He's free to leave Christianity. He's free to stay in it. His choice. And I applaud that. I applaud that because he's free. It's his free will. I don't want him doing as I say. I don't want him doing what others say. I want Dad doing what Dad feels called to do. To believe what Dad feels called to believe. I celebrate that. So there's nothing to make up. We just have an entirely different philosophy. That's all there's to it. And that's okay. That's okay. Okay. You guys are awesome, man. You guys have some great statements in these comments. Thank you so much. Yeah, see, look at these comments you guys are making. This stuff is freaking brilliant. Good one, Thomas. Good one. I like that. Yeah, I like that. You and me both. Grinifer, you and me both. You are defining my childhood. Seriously, you are shining the light into my childhood. Never judge a book by its cover. You guys are on it, man. You guys are on it. Yes, Brian. Yes. Yes. Stagnation. Here, this comment. Thank you, Leon. Stagnation leads to disease. Those are the exact words of my naturopathic doctor the first day I went to see her for cancer. And I asked her, one of my questions was, why did I get cancer? And she said, probably one of the major contributors is stagnation, because stagnation leads to disease. Stagnative thinking leads to diseased thoughts. Stagnative life leads to a diseased existence. Stagnant food, eating always the same food all the time, leads to a disease in your body. You're not getting the nutrients that you need. Diversity, flow, magnanimity, meaning the whole picture and sharing that with others. That is what is going to prevent stagnancy and bring about flow. What's this? Hi, Matt. One of the reasons I enjoy listening to you, Chuck, is it's open to all age. Thank you. It's open to all ages, older generations. I try that. Actually, finding balance with everyone is important. Thank you. Yeah. Nailed it, G Watt 42. Nailed it. I love you also, Hans. Thank you. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Oh my goodness, it's 8:20. I didn't even know it. Okay. Not a question, but a comment. What you got, Gretchen? I'll take that as the last one today. Donate on the parrot. Thank you for that. That was really good. Thank you for that. That was really good. I needed that laugh. Thank you for that. That was really good. Don't hate on the parrot. We got a parrot owner. Look out. Yes. You're exactly right, Stormy. You're exactly right. You guys are awesome, man. The stuff you guys are writing is just fantastic. And Gretchen, I'm going to finish with you, love, because you are a longtime customer of my channel. Thank you. Okay. My dad used to call the congregation customers. Sorry, I don't mean to be offensive. That's my dad used to call the congregation, though. Anyway, Chuck, question. Was Kabbalah written by Jewish mystics and the Talmud by the Khazarians? Man, that would take some research, wouldn't it? Yeah, I think the Kabbalah is a lot like the Rosicrucian cross in that it has some real viable aspects and then it has some really detrimental aspects. And I always approach things like the Kabbalah, things like alternate religion and all that kind of stuff, all the different kinds of belief systems. I always approach them with the thought of there's going to be some aspects in there that's going to be helpful to me, that's going to resonate. And then there's going to be aspects that are just gross and needless. You yourself have to decide that. You yourself have to find these systems and study them and find out about what in them resonates and simply cherry pick that out, integrate it, and move on. Don't get stuck in any one perspective. Don't get stuck in any one belief. You really don't want to do that. You want to have this open perspective whereby you understand that nature's an enigma. You'll never get your fingers around it. Okay, so stop trying to define it finally. Stop trying to define yourself finally. Stop trying to define God finally. You know, leave these things open. And yes, I believe that the Talmud, which is it's a nasty document. It's misogynistic and it's pretty nasty. If I have the right document in mind, and I think I do, but that one really sounds like it was written by Khazarians, but I haven't done enough study in that directly in the history of the Kabbalah and Talmud. I mean, I'm not a historian and I'm not a professor. So some of these questions I can't answer fully. We did have a wonderful time together, Lancelot. Thank you. We did. No, you don't. Don't do that. Don't do as Chuck says. No. Yeah, I love you too, Leon. Love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I got to close up shop. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you next week. And this week actually was going to be the slowest week, meaning the material that we were covering was a bit repetitive. What we're going to be doing in the coming 7 weeks, what we're going to be doing is really stuff that when I was reading the material for the first time, I literally dropped my mouth and took a breath in, like, a number of times when I read it. That's what's coming. And it filled me with awe. And I'm really looking forward to presenting that to you. And so today I just wanted to give you a basic picture of where Rosicrucian came from, its authors, its, you know, its overall gist, what it is attempting. And then from that, you guys have that as a basis, a little bit of its symbolism. You then can grow into, okay, what is this understanding this philosophy really saying? And that's going to be awesome. And I'm really looking forward to presenting that stuff to you. So I'll look forward to seeing you guys next week. I will close out with the beginning song. Whoops, what just happened? There we are. I'll close out with the beginning song that I had, music, and I'll see you guys next week. I love you. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.